Phoenix Nights. Chapter 351. Blue Lake Mountain Range. Somewhere in the treasure, a blonde girl sat on the ground. Her beautiful and fresh face was full of frustration. Strands of blonde curls were stuck together by sweat. Her beige folded skirt looked dirty and torn. She looked embarrassed. "Dodo, do you know how to go? Little princess, let me think again." The slime had already returned to his original onion appearance. Looking at the three-way intersection in front, his forehead seemed to be full of cold sweat. Dodo had begun to regret in his heart. I shouldn't have been tempted by the little princess, free, good wine for a month, and followed her to this place to take risks. The slime didn't know the secret of this treasure location, but he occasionally heard a few words from his mistress. He vaguely understood something in his heart. He secretly thought that with his many years of experience in dealing with those magic traps in the black rainforest, it shouldn't be a big problem. So, under the temptation of Alice's heavy profit, Dodo, who was drooling due to his gluttony, finally agreed. Finally, the slime still remembered his master's strict orders and did not reveal more things, such as Chinrui's power. However, Dodo's self-righteous cognition was based on the inscription set up by the dragons in the black rainforest before they died. The power was completely different from the one set up by Paglio and Chinrui now. Besides, the slime's so-called experience was to use his immortal body to endure the trap. Then, he would use some kind of strange power to temporarily disable the trap when triggering it. Then, Alice could pass. The problem was that these inscriptions and magic circles were not the kind of pure damage. They were more of a hallucinatory and misleading nature. The slime took Alice around for a while, and he actually got lost. Once again, he was almost teleported to the terrifying explosive trap. If Dodo didn't turn into a big shield in time, Alice would have been seriously injured. Facing Alice's doubts, the slime had more cold sweat. He was talented enough to feel the existence of traps at the three intersections. There was a faint sense of danger. The question was which one was less dangerous. After being shattered many times, it did not have much power left. However, the slime knew better that if he left Alice and slipped away alone, even if he could escape, he would be crushed by his master and mistress. The slime thought for a while. Generally, the middle part of the demon realm's fruit is always the best. Then, "I'll take the middle part." Alice didn't know the basis of Dodo's path choice. Seeing it jumping toward the middle road, she immediately got up and followed behind. When approaching the magic trap, Dodo suddenly felt that the threat of the magic trap suddenly disappeared. It turned out that the danger was just an illusion. Sir Dodo's choice was indeed wise. Before the slime could finish being proud, a figure appeared in front of him. Dodo was shocked. When he saw the person clearly, he quickly showed a flattering smile. "It turns out that the great master is here. That's great." Now that Chinrui's strength had already surpassed Dodo's, and the destructive power of Aurora shot could naturally restrain him, Dodo was in awe of his master from the bottom of his heart. The cunning slime knew that he had caused a lot of trouble this time, so he hurriedly tried to please him. "Didn't the master say something? Don't slap a smiling face. I'll settle the score with you when we get back." Chinrui ignored Dodo's flattery and glared at him fiercely. The slime's heart skipped a beat, and he remembered a sentence that his master said, "Settle the score after the fall." Dodo's judgment just now was actually wrong. The inscription in the middle road was the most powerful and lethal. Once it exploded, Dodo might not die, but Alice at the back would definitely be strongly affected. If it weren't for Chinrui's timely arrival to curb the activation of the inscription, the consequences would be unimaginable. "Chinrui, you're finally back." Chinrui's appearance made Alice's eyes brighten. She felt that her tired body had strength again, so she walked over happily. When she saw the human's gloomy face, it was as if she was splashed with cold water. She pouted unhappily. "It's too dangerous here. Let's leave first. You guys follow me. You must follow my foothold." Chinrui took Alice and Dodo along the way and finally found the safe position where the little black horse was. When Dodo saw the little black horse, he quickly jumped over. However, the little black horse was extremely uninterested in this guy. Its hooves stomped on the ground as if it was warning him. Let's go back. Alice had been lowering her head, but she raised her head when she heard that. Her face showed a stubborn expression. I'm not going back. Chenrui frowned, and his tone became a little stern. Do you know that it's dangerous here? If I didn't find that place just now, you're probably dead. I don't care. I'm not going back. Alice didn't know why, but she suddenly threw a tantrum. Chenrui was angry in his heart. When he saw the tears faintly flashing in the little Loli's big eyes, he thought of Athena's instructions before leaving. His mood calmed down a lot. After thinking about it, he let Dodo and the little black horse go back first. Anyway, the inscription hadn't changed automatically yet, and the little black horse remembered the way. After Dodo and the little black horse left, Alice still bit her lip without saying a word, as if she was sulking. Are you hungry? A fragrant pudding appeared in front of the little Loli. The little Loli secretly swallowed her saliva, but she still stubbornly remained silent. This is blueberry flavored. Isn't it your favorite? If it were usual, the little Loli would definitely snatch it, but this time she surprisingly didn't move. She lowered her head and said, What about after eating? Follow you back? It's too unsafe here. We must go back, really? Another disobedient little girl got caught and brought back. Alice's tone showed a strange frustration. It could even be called decadent. This time, she really ignored the existence of the pudding. Chenrui noticed the word again, and he didn't continue. Troublesome little girl, troublemaker little girl, immature little girl. Alice's head drooped even lower. Your sister is working so hard. It's so difficult. You should be sensible. You should learn. Chenrui clearly saw crystal tears dripping from Alice's drooping face. Although she didn't continue, Chenrui faintly understood something in his heart. No matter what, Alice was only a 14-year-old girl after all, just like the little girl, she said. Not to mention her, even an adult would also have woeful and unhappy times. In the princess retail store alone, you will encounter a lot of unhappy people or things. He was 14 years old once. It seemed to be the beginning of a rebellious period. This rebelliousness actually continued until his adult period before he crossed over. Some things even became edges that couldn't be smoothed. Chenrui, am I a failure as a person? The little Loli still drooped her head. This word is a bit exaggerated. Chenrui shook his head with a wry smile. A little girl at such a young age, even if I don't count the hundreds of years of life of demons, she is just an ordinary human. Her life has just begun. What's there to talk about failure? I don't know. What I know is that many aristocratic ladies older than you only rely on their parents all day to eat, drink and play all day long, leading a befuddled life. They even abuse their power and bully others. No one can run a store independently, and even open a branch in a neighboring country. I think Alice is already quite excellent. This is not a compliment, it's the truth. Really? Alice suddenly raised her head. Her big tearful eyes showed a glimmer of hope. Of course. Chenrui nodded affirmatively. Then, give it to me. What? Pudding. I'm starving to death. Chenrui breathed a sigh of relief and handed the pudding over. The little Loli immediately gobbled it up. Just now, chewing sound. Did I make you angry? A little bit, but I'm worried about you. Chenrui watched her wipe out the pudding in an instant and handed over a glass of juice. Alice is the most important sister in my heart. Humph. I'm just my sister's sister. The little Loli took a big sip of juice and finally replenished the water that she cried out just now. I want to be like Athena. I want to be the most important woman to you. Chenrui shook his head. When he was about to speak, he heard the little Loli said again. Or, it's about the same as Kia. Don't think that I don't know why she lives back there. Humph. Chenrui's expression was awkward. He thought about the wording and said, Alice, there are some things that you're still young and don't understand. Why don't I understand? I'm an expert. Alice finished the juice in one breath. Athena and I even discussed that kind of thing. Later, I gave her a copy of The Handsome Dragon Who Was Humiliated by the Princess. Chun-Rui was even more embarrassed when she didn't mention this matter. Back then, Athena was influenced by this superb novel that was not suitable for children. As a result, in order to conceive his child at the dangerous time of refined mind, she took the initiative to do it on a large scale, and even swallowed some kind of turbid white liquid with a pungent smell. That was the first special service that a certain man enjoyed since he came to the demon realm. In other words, he was also a beneficiary of some kind of welfare. The lowly expert looked proud as if she had forgotten her tears just now. Do you want me to recommend you a few more books? Stop. Chun-Rui immediately stopped her. You really don't need to read those books anymore. And there are some things that you will naturally understand when you grow up. I'm already grown up now. Some girls are already married like me. The little lowly glanced at her flat chest, and she suddenly lost her confidence. Her voice also became smaller. Do you only like big breasts? A few black bars dropped on Chun-Rui's forehead. This, is directly related to big boobs? But then again, Athena and Kia are both, and when Athena patted her chest, her shaking two hemispheres almost made my eyeballs fall out. Glancing at the little lowly's depressed look, Chun-Rui quickly returned to reality from his absent-mindedness. He quickly said, Let's explain it this way. Alice, you've just come into contact with the opposite sex. It's a kind of vague affection. It's not a real liking yet. When you grow up, you will meet someone you really like or even love. Chun-Rui reluctantly played the role of an expert, and racked his brains to explain a lot. In fact, he didn't have much experience himself. The little lowly's eyes were getting brighter and brighter. So, you don't hate that girl with small breasts? Chun-Rui was speechless for a while. I've tried my best to explain for a long time, and this little lowly's focus is actually on that. If Jia knows that I'm doing this to her sister, I'm afraid she will burst out with terrifying power beyond the demon emperor. The point is that I really don't have this intention for my sister, but for my sister. Seeing that the little lowly was about to turn into a dead end, Chun-Rui had to change his way of guiding. I just don't like girls who are too young. Let's make an agreement. After 5 years, if you still don't have someone you like by then. Speaking of which, she will be a 19-year-old girl in 5 years. Even if there is something, at least I won't feel guilty. Speaking of which, Alice is still very cute, but in terms of attributes, I heard that when a girl grows up, she will change 18 times. Will it? Probably. 5 years? The little lowly tilted her head and thought for a while, then she shook her head firmly. No! It's too long. Who knows how many women you will get over these years? By that time, I don't know if they will be ranked a few hundred behind. These two sentences made Chun-Rui sweat on his forehead. The little lowly pursed her lips and gave a deadline. 1 year at most? The little lowly's idea was that there were not many competitors now. Moreover, Athena was her good friend, and Kia was also a friend. According to the experience in the book, she could definitely easily integrate into the harem, then unite the two friends to deal with the new woman. If Chun-Rui knew the exact thoughts in the little lowly's mind, the sweat on his forehead would definitely increase tenfold. 1 year is definitely not possible then. 4 years. 1.5 years. In the end, the two made a deal. With 3 years. For Chun-Rui, 3 years was just a delaying tactic. He believed that time would dilute many things. With this most important agreement, Alice's previous frustration was swept away, and she returned to the original spirited little lowly. You must not tell sister about this. Alice's eyes were threatening. In fact, this was also what Chun-Rui wanted to say, so he nodded quickly. In order to prevent you from going back on your words, I have to do one thing first. The little lowly rolled her eyes. Close your eyes now. As soon as he closed his eyes, he felt a warm and fresh breath approaching and gently pasted on his lips. Chun-Rui opened his eyes, and the little lowly had already stood on her tiptoes. Her white and smooth face was blushing, and she didn't dare to look at him for a while. I was kissed again. Why is it again? To be honest, that warm and soft feeling, indeed, it's okay. The little loli didn't dare to stick her tongue in like last time. She just kissed him lightly. After all, she was pretending to be a corpse last time. This time, looking at her shy look, it was quite cute. Perhaps, as Athena said, she wasn't a child anymore. This is the interest I'm giving you 3 years in advance. The little loli used the vocabulary taught by Chenrei very well. She looked experienced. Don't be nervous, it's not my first time kissing a man. That posture seemed to be saying to a certain girl who was molested, don't cry. I will be responsible. In fact, the first target was still Chenrei, but he knocked on the head first and snatched the first kiss, so it should be both of them. I've recorded it just now. If you dare to go back on your words, I will tell sister that you are lusting after me. Alice proudly waved the recording stone in her hand. In fact, it was more to dissolve the shyness on her face. Don't accuse me like this, right? Who is lusting after whom? Chenrei rationally didn't argue with her. He just nodded. Okay. I'm very tired today. I can't walk anymore. Carry me back. Ah? Humph. She waved the recording stone. Oh yeah, tell a story while walking. I have to hear it before. Chapter 352. After faintly learning some secrets of the treasure of the Blue Lake mountain range, Alice was not surprised that Chenrei easily entered and exited the magic circles along the way with ease. As an additional clause of the agreement, little Loli specially promised Chenrei that she would never disclose this matter. She also promised him to accept Kia's protection on normal days and would no longer be so willful. After listening to the 2 stories, the tired little loli fell asleep on Chenrei's back. When he sat on the tri-horned rhino with her in his arms, her young face was as tranquil as a newborn baby, giving Chenrei a feeling of peace of mind. 3 years? Can time really change everything? Chenrei gently stroked little Loli's hair, and he suddenly remembered a classic saying. Let's talk about the future in the future. No matter what, at least she is the cutest sister. When Chenrei returned to the palace with the sleeping Alice on his back, Jiao walked out quickly. Seeing that little Loli was safe and sound, she finally breathed a sigh of relief. She took Alice from his hands, handed her to the maid, and sent her to the inner courtyard to rest. Although Dodo's incarnation of Chenrei was inconspicuous, he had already appeared publicly in the dark moon, so he didn't have to hide. You have to worry about Alice's matter as soon as you come back. Thank you, Jiao said, and the 2 walked into the council hall together. The maid on the side had already retreated sensibly. It's okay. This time, you're outside. Are you all right? For the first time, Jiao didn't directly ask about the plan this time, but she asked such a question. It was not a bureaucratic greeting, but it was stiff and difficult, mixed with a feeling that she couldn't explain. It was as if she hadn't seen this man for a long time, and she wanted to blurt out something. In Chenrei's ears, there was a faint warmth in her tone. He nodded and said, I'm fine, but you seem to have lost some weight. Since the appearance of the dark moon's treasure, Jiao had been busy. She had indeed lost some weight, but her mental appearance was much better than when she faced great pressure before. The elegant temperament of an ice goddess was even more attractive. For the subjects of the dark moon, this was a kind of majesty that kept people thousands of miles away, but for someone, majesty and lord were all fleeting clouds. In his eyes, she was just a beautiful boss. Moreover, there was an ambiguous relationship between him and the iceberg royal sister boss. She definitely wouldn't admit it, but she had to admit it in her heart. Save your sweet words for Athena and Kia. Jiao's eyes turned cold. This guy, if I loosen an inch, he will be furious. However, she seemed to have forgotten that she started the conversation first. Chenrei still smiled and said, Then, the true words like but more beautiful can only be forced back. Okay. It's time for you to talk about the plan. Jiao's concluding remarks stopped this meaningless conversation. Maybe she wanted to continue, but the plan was related to the future of the Dark Moon, so it was obviously more important. Chenrui didn't continue to tease her. He explained the progress of the plan, then he told her about the possible situations and countermeasures. Jia couldn't help but nod. The plan that was almost unimaginable at the time has been implemented to this extent now. This plan has changed too much compared with the original expectation. Many of them are improvised. In fact, I'm not sure. I can only say that our luck and mine are good. In any case, all of this is brought about by you, Jia said with deep emotion. It's just a year. The Dark Moon at the beginning and the Dark Moon now. Trusting you at the beginning was the best decision in my life. Indeed, when Chenrui first came, the Dark Moon was just a desperate struggle, but now it was a thriving hope. More importantly, if the plan was successful, this hope might be further closer to realization. Jia took a deep look at him. On behalf of the entire Dark Moon, I want to say thank you. It's too early to thank me now. The entire Dark Moon made Chenrui feel that the atmosphere seemed a little serious. He immediately squinted his eyes. Besides, I only accept Princess Royal's personal gratitude. I think there will be opportunities to explore this issue in depth in the future. Jia was not angry this time. She just shook her head gently. In a sense, I am the entire Dark Moon. You should understand. Chenrui saw 70% determination and 30% gloominess in her purple eyes. For the lineal descendant of the Lord of Midnight Sun, the Lord of the entire Dark Moon, and also the legal heir of the Empire, one hair would affect the whole body. Many things were involuntary. Perhaps she was already involuntary since she was born. After her father passed away, this involuntary feeling was infinitely magnified. When you went to the Shadow Empire last time, you should have met Empress Catherine. She turned the tide and saved the entire Shadow Empire. She made the Shadow Empire grow step by step until it became the powerful empire today. She is the most amazing woman in the entire demon realm, and she is also my lifelong goal. Jia wanted to add that Catherine the Great was still single, but she didn't say it for some reason. It was the first time she said this to others. She only felt a strange feeling in her heart. It was completely different from facing the mirror or wind chime in the secret room deep in the palace. In fact, even if Jia added that sentence, it was useless because she didn't know that the first man and only man of Catherine the Great, her imitating goal or idol, was this human in front of her. Chenrui put away his playful attitude and said seriously, "Perhaps an outstanding leader can really change an estate or even an empire. I actually don't know much about this. I only know that even an ordinary person has a relaxing moment to relieve pressure. If everything is suppressed in the heart, then sooner or later there will be a day of collapse. How can a person who is knocked down by his own pressure become a truly great ruler?" He almost revealed the matter of the secret room, but he was worried that Jia would turn against him after her biggest privacy was revealed. Now that she had a good sign of revealing her thoughts, it was better to do it step by step. At least, he had to wait until the most important plan that he painstakingly planned succeeded. Jia nodded slightly, only to hear the guy say another word. So? Aren't you going to take the initiative to invite me to dance to express your personal gratitude? Let a lady take the initiative to invite you to dance? Jia almost couldn't hold back her emotions. After a long time, she calmed down and said coldly, "If you want to dance, there are still 2 women waiting for you at home." Why does this sentence sound a bit sour? Chenrui showed a look of reminiscence. I suddenly don't want to dance now, but I remembered another thing. I remember that last time Princess Royal promised, when I say a certain word, you can't kill me. Jia's face inexplicably flashed a rare blush. Chenrui saw it and added with interest, Princess Royal seems to have sworn in the name of the royal family. Jia only felt that her heart was beating fast. She gritted her teeth and said, "You don't go too far." Chenrui asked blankly, "Is it too far?" He was willing to bet that he definitely had the style of a certain valley's pseudo-natural days. Next time, I may come back after the plan is almost completed. Let's save these 3 words until then. Which 3 words does Princess Royal think I should say? Jia suddenly took a deep breath, her expression became cold, and her heartbeat gradually calmed down. She turned her back and ignored him. Her tone was resolute. No matter what it is, it's your business, it has nothing to do with me. I want to remind you not to hold any unrealistic delusions. Don't forget your identity. I don't want to listen to these meaningless things anymore. Now you can leave. The human's tone seemed to be a little depressed. So, I'm leaving. Hearing the footsteps behind her, Jia's head drooped slightly, and there was a faint sense of loss in her tone. Stupid woman, he should say the word right to you. You really don't want to hear it? Do you really want him to go? Or are you afraid that it will be difficult to control if you continue step by step? Or difficult to refuse? You're really a stupid woman, just at this time. Right, that Princess Royal. The voice suddenly came from the door of the hall. Jia was shocked as if she got an electric shock. She looked back and found that the guy didn't go far. Then the words just now, there was a nasty smile on his nasty face. Actually, I want to add that there are some important things that I want to confess to Princess Royal together. Confess, you finished? It seems so, get lost. In the monstrous murderous aura, someone fled. The palace guards, even if they changed shifts temporarily, didn't see Chinray carrying Alice into the palace. They all knew that it must be the human sheriff who angered Princess Royal. Every now and then, there would always be 1 or 2 times. They didn't know what this guy reported that made Her Royal Highness so angry. Anyway, this daring guy would lose his head sooner or later. But then again, it was also a kind of ability to make Princess Royal, who had always been cold, lose her composure. Sure enough, it was the human sheriff who had just woken up. Seeing the strange look of several familiar guards, the human smiled awkwardly, but there was a faint warmth in his heart. Stupid woman? It's cuter to call her stupid woman. In the council hall, Jia gently covered her face. She felt the heat from the inside out that couldn't go away. She didn't know if it was shame, annoyance, or both. Finally, it gathered into one sentence: damn man. Princess Royal didn't know that this title was also said by her idol, Catherine, the Empress of the Shadow Empire in the Crystal Valley a few months ago. Moreover, it was the same damn man. Chapter 353. Dark Moon City. Financial Officer's Residence. Joseph Alvin was listening to the report of his subordinate, Royce. Last month, our magic store's revenue declined the most, reaching 35%. Due to the treasure, the comprehensive revenue of other aspects has increased, but the increase is very small, about 1%. Joseph frowned slightly. The magic store's revenue has dropped so much? Is it because of the Cloak Gang's magic store? Royce nodded. Yes, since the Cloak Gang's magic store has Master Xingxing, the goods have been sold out at the fastest speed every time. Our customers have been snatched away by them. The other shops of the Chamber of Commerce have been sanctioned by Princess Royal, such as not being able to join the night market, adding similar competitive shops near the original shops, etc. In addition, the new Chamber of Commerce Moonlight, jointly founded by the Custer family and Princess Royal, has pushed us to the edge of the cliff. What about the Mellon family? As far as I know, the Mellon family has been secretly courting Princess Royal for a long time. Their industry has not been hit like ours, and 2 shops have been allowed to join the night market. Royce showed a mocking expression. The same is true for some small families that originally attached to us. Those guys are fence-sitters. They are unreliable at all. From the beginning, I didn't intend to rely on these guys. Joseph shook his head. The emergence of this treasure has turned some of Princess Royal's original mistakes into the most effective means, such as road repair, shop repair, etc. It seems to be prepared. At first, I even took the initiative to sponsor half of the costs for free. Now that I think about it, it seems to be a trap. Royce's heart moved, and he showed a thoughtful expression. I also considered this initially, but the fountain of vitality should not be fake. The awakening of the human Chinray is the best proof. Moreover, at an auction yesterday, the bottles of Fountain of Vitality that Athena brought back last time were sold at an astonishing price. The buyer was a potion master from the Shadow Empire. Judging from the Fountain of Vitality and the continuous stream of treasure hunters, there is indeed a mysterious treasure that was previously unknown in the Blue Lake mountain range. Auction? Joseph was taken aback by the new term. Sir has just returned, so you may not know that the newly opened auction house of the Dark Moon is a new industry directly managed by the Lord. It is located in the northwest block. It is very large and heavily guarded. He also specially invited several masters from the Mechanic Association of the Shadow Empire through the Custer family of the Shadow Empire to set up a complex defensive magic circle. The degree of security is quite high. Guests can place some valuable items into the auction house, and the auction house will appraise and evaluate these items. Then, at a fixed time, an open auction will be held. The highest bidder wins, and the auction house will take 20% of the transaction value as a reward. 20%? Joseph was moved. I am an expert in economics. This auction house is just a transit function. It is equivalent to making a profit with nothing. I can actually get a high profit of 20%. The higher the transaction price, the higher the profit. It is simply a money tree. This time, in addition to the Fountain of Vitality, there are also the treasures provided by the palace and several families. The most conspicuous one is the several treasures from the Blue Lake mountain range commissioned by a treasure hunter. It has attracted a large number of bidders. The scene is extremely lively. The success of this auction has made many people start to rush to book tickets for the next auction in advance. Joseph's eyes flashed. It is precisely because the Lord is directly managing it that others are not qualified to imitate it. It is equivalent to monopolizing this huge benefit. What a great auction house! Royce knew that Jia had been inactive previously, so Joseph would definitely think of these, so he said, "According to my inference, the idea of this auction house is likely to originate from Chen Rui. It should be something copied from the human world." "Yes, I think so too." Joseph frowned tightly. In the past half a year, the Dark Moon has changed too fast and too much. The Princess Retail Store, the Battle Ball, the Night Market, the Shadow Empire's Custer family entering the Dark Moon to establish a new Chamber of Commerce, the renovation of the Dark Moon, the auction house. These changes are definitely inseparable from the idea of this human behind the scenes. It seems that I have always underestimated this little bug that I thought was insignificant. My current strength is only a little bug in front of him, Royce said in his heart, but he looked worried on the surface. The trend of the Dark Moon has basically taken shape now. Even if we kill this human secretly, it will not help. The most important thing for us is to consider how to reverse this disadvantage. Otherwise, as long as this trend continues, we will be completely squeezed out without the opponent's help. Joseph nodded solemnly. Recently, his situation was really a bit bad. It was the same for the Dark Moon, and the Red Spirit were also having a hard time. Although there was no conclusive evidence of him snitching to the capital in the case of Charles, his father Josh had obviously begun to alienate him. Some policies for Town Mordo also showed a faint trend of sanctions. The only comfort was Prince Obsidian from the capital. He expressed a considerable degree of appreciation for his loyalty to the capital and the regent this time. He also implicitly pointed out some shortcomings of the current Red Spirit Lord Josh. He faintly hinted that Joseph would inherit the estate in the future. As far as the current situation was concerned, this inheritance was obviously far away, and the capital's praise was only verbal. However, Joseph did not regret it because if he allowed Charles and Kanita to continue to cooperate, then he would probably not face the current passivity, but a real failure. Moreover, it was not entirely impossible to inherit the position of the Lord in advance. This possibility was based on some unexpected circumstances, such as Josh's physical health problems. He not only had the long-term support of the capital, but he also had an unfathomable ally in front of him, the heir of the Gluttony royal family, Aguil. Beelzebub. It was the letter sent by Aguile, just now, inviting him to the Cloak Gang for a chat. It was Aguile's reminder last time that enabled him to destroy Kanita's huge interests in time. This meeting might be an opportunity for him to get out of the current predicament. The place where Aguile invited him to meet was the second stronghold of the Cloak Gang in the Northwest Block. This place was originally where the Mellon family was located. It occupied a large area and was very valuable. Later, because the Mellon family was suspected of assassinating the Cloak Gang's leader and smuggling people, they were forced to give up this place. Princess Royal Jia transferred it to the Cloak Gang as compensation. In order to avoid being discovered that the financial officer had a secret contact with the Cloak Gang, Joseph specially disguised himself and came to the Cloak Gang this time. Soon, he was led to a newly built stadium. The stadium was heavily guarded on the outside as if it was an important place. However, after entering, he realized that it was actually an indoor battlefield, but it seemed to be a standard 3-person field. The old friend, Aguile, happened to be sitting next to him calmly, watching the 3-on-3 battle ball match in the field. Those players were all wearing strange masks, and their true faces could not be seen clearly. Other than Aguile, Joseph was the only audience. "You're here, my friend." Aguile didn't get up, nor did he look at him. He just pointed to the side. "Sit." Joseph already knew that this ally was at least a great Demon King level powerhouse. With his current situation, the other party's attitude was already considered good. Joseph sat down, and Aguile said calmly, "As far as I know, you seem to be in a lot of trouble recently. Whether it's the Red Spirit Estate or the Dark Moon, the situation doesn't seem to be very good." "Yes, it's really not good." Joseph sighed and did not deny it. He knew that this person was powerful, especially his intelligence ability. Back then, Aguile was the one who revealed the collusion between Kanita and the foreign humans to him. It could be said that he pulled him back from the edge of the cliff. Of course, Joseph didn't feel much gratitude because both sides were using each other. The reason why the other party helped him was that he still had value to use. Contrary to the previous strong and weak relationship, Joseph was now on the weaker side in terms of personal strength and power. Therefore, he had to show his value and further use the other party's power to strive to reverse the current disadvantage. Chenrei saw Joseph's expression and said, "So, do you have the courage to gamble everything to turn the tables?" "Gamble everything?" Joseph looked suspicious. "Even if I gamble everything, how can I turn the tables?" Chenrei nodded, but he didn't explain further. He just looked at the battle in the field. Joseph didn't know what to say for a while. Did he invite me here just to watch the game? However, Joseph was not an impatient person. He knew that the other party must have a purpose, so he didn't rashly ask for help at the moment. He just followed him silently to watch the fierce game in the field. Gradually, Joseph found that this battle ball game was actually more intense than expected. It was the same battle ball, but it could change into various unexpected arcs when passing or shooting. Whether it was skills, physical fitness, or overall offensive and defensive cooperation, it was stronger than any game he had ever seen, including the two teams with the highest level of the Dark Moon's Imperial Guards and Garrison Guards. It could be said that they were a level higher than them. "How about this team?" The other party finally spoke. "I have never seen such superb ball skills. It's hard to imagine that they are just intermediate demons." Joseph replied truthfully, "If there are 11 people, and they all reach this level and cooperation, I believe they can sweep any official and civilian team of the Dark Moon. To be precise, there are 20 people, and 9 of them are substitutes. Just when the Dark Moon just started to experiment with the battle ball, they already have the highest level of the current Dark Moon team." Aguile revealed a big secret. "Because the battle ball was created by me." Joseph was taken aback. This battle ball has greatly improved the combat power of the Dark Moon army, and it has also brought unimaginable huge benefits in terms of economy. I didn't expect it to be created by Aguile. I don't need an old Dark Moon on the verge of death. What I need is a truly prosperous and powerful estate. Shinrui's tone seemed to be that the current controller of the Dark Moon was not Jia, but him. Agwile. Beelzebub. Remember, I said that my true identity makes it impossible for me to control the Dark Moon openly now. I need a spokesperson. It depends on whether you have the courage. Shinrui's tone made Joseph's eyes light up. Could it be that this, Agwile, already has a perfect plan? The Dark Moon will be in his pocket sooner or later? What do I need to do? Joseph's mind turned, and he asked decisively. If I can control the Dark Moon and force Jia into a real empty shell, then I will definitely get the capital's appreciation and affirmation. With the current Dark Moon as the foundation, no matter how Josh oppresses me, I can be invincible. When necessary, I can also betray the Beelzebub royal family to the capital in exchange for my own benefits. Shinrui didn't say much. He just pointed to the players in the fierce confrontation in the field. Joseph frowned and suddenly understood something. You mean the battle ball? Actually, coming to this place today, you should have seen the dawn of your victory. Shinrui laughed confidently behind the mask. It depends on how you gamble. Joseph didn't agree immediately, but he fell into contemplation. After a while he said, With the chips in my hands now, I'm afraid it's not enough to gamble with Princess Royal. How about adding all the properties of the night market and the cloak gang? Shinrui continued to tempt this cunning enemy. I will create some contradictions at the appropriate time and publicly break up with Jia. However, there's one thing to clarify first. I'm the real master of the Dark Moon. Your destination is not here, but in the Red Spirit. After the Dark Moon succeeds, I will fully support you in the next step to seek the position of the Red Spirit. Although your father, who is the intermediate stage of the Demon Emperor, is in his prime, but people will always encounter some accidents, right? Future Sir Lord? Joseph heard that Agwile helped him like this because he wanted to use his financial officer identity and the capital's relationship to control the Dark Moon on the surface. But this could just resolve his current crisis. It could be regarded as mutual benefit. If the other party helped him without asking for anything, it would be suspicious instead. The Red Spirit Lord, proposed by the other party, also made Joseph very tempted. At present, he had received praise from the capital regent because of his whistleblowing. If his father had an accident, at that time, causing the position of the Lord to be vacant, his hope of becoming the Lord should be far greater than Kanita's. Agwile lurked around Jia, swindled her trust step by step, and planned the emergence of the battle ball. He did not hesitate to gamble the painstakingly managed night market and the cloak gang in order to control the Dark Moon and revive the Beelzebub royal family. Judging from the quality of the players in front of him, as long as Jia fell into this trap, she would definitely lose. Now it depended on how to make Jia walk into this gamble. In this regard, Joseph was quite confident because the Dark Moon's Chamber of Commerce and a considerable part of its economic power were still in his hands. As long as he didn't hand it over, Jia couldn't be considered to have complete control of the Dark Moon. No matter from which perspective, this plan is completely feasible. Unless Agwile suddenly lost his mind and wanted to hand over the future and painstakingly managed power of the Beelzebub royal family to the enemy, the Lucifer royal family, and he even wanted to die with him, the financial officer. Is this possible? The look on Joseph's face became more and more determined. Finally, he stood up without hesitation. I'll bet! The financial officer, who thought he had victory in his grasp, might not know that anything was possible. Chapter 354. Seeing Joseph leaving complacently, Shinrui smiled knowingly. He could guess most of Joseph's thoughts with his eyes closed. This was indeed the best opportunity to turn the tables. As long as he won all the economic control of the Dark Moon and made Jia a mere figurehead, he could get great appreciation from the capital. Not only that, he could also rely on the help of the Beelzebub royal family to try to, accidentally, eliminate his father, Josh, who had been playing the balance game. With the support of the capital, he could replace him without any dispute and ascend the throne of the Red Spirit Lord. As for Kanita, after losing Josh, his biggest backer, he could only be slaughtered by Joseph. Even if he turned around and bit the Beelzebub royal family again, it was entirely possible. Joseph's idea was indeed correct. Otherwise, he wouldn't have agreed so decisively. This was indeed a script to fully control the Dark Moon. Joseph was indeed an important role, but the real protagonist was someone else. Due to the God-eating mask and Jia's actions, Joseph had a preconceived notion that Aguil's Beelzebub royal family identity was unquestionable. So many actions and deliberately lurking around Jia was to subvert the Dark Moon and revive the grand plan of Beelzebub. Therefore, although this smiling tiger was suspicious by nature, after careful consideration of all aspects, he couldn't seem to think of any problems with Aguil's motives and plans. Little did he know that what he thought was the most impossible was actually the truth. This show would definitely be quite exciting at that time, but the director might not be able to watch it because he was likely to be directing another big show at that time. At present, he only had a few days left in the Dark Moon. After sending Joseph away, Chen-rui didn't change his outfit. He went straight to the old stronghold of the Cloak Gang in the ancient house. Many details needed to be explained in advance, including some measures to cooperate with Joseph and the ways to deal with changes just in case. When he came to the number 4 street in the southeast block, he saw a lot of gang members surrounding the Cloak Gang from afar as if they were facing a formidable enemy. There were only 3 people on the other side. Chen-rui walked forward slowly. Some people had already seen the arrival of the leader, so they gave way. Chen-rui caught a glimpse of the disguised Sky, who was also mixed in the crowd far away, and there was a faint anxiety in his eyes. Sky's strength was already at the Great Demon King level, but he showed such a fearful look. Could these people be related to his enemies? The 3 of them were all men. The young man in the lead had handsome facial features and a unique, gentle, and elegant temperament. One of the 2 men behind him was tall and strong with extraordinary might, while the other was thin and weak, looking very tired. However, Chen-rui could tell that these 2 people were not simple, especially the old man, who gave him a faint feeling that he was no match for him. Chen-rui immediately activated analytical eyes, and the data displayed shocked him. The young man in the lead, race, greed royal family. Comprehensive strength assessment, B+ physique, B- strength, C spirit, B+, agility, B tall man, race, wrath royal family. Comprehensive strength assessment, A-, physique, A- strength, A spirit, C+, agility, A emaciated old man, race, greed royal family. Comprehensive strength assessment, A+ physique, A strength, A spirit, A+, agility, A+. 1 peak stage Great Demon King and 2 Demon Emperors. The Demon Emperor level had reached the level of a general Great Lord, and one of them was at least an advanced stage of the Demon Emperor. Maybe he was even a Demon Overlord. These 2 Demon Emperors seemed to be led by the Great Demon King level young man. It seemed that the gentleman should be a noble of the Bloody Empire royal family. His identity was extraordinary. If they were really Sky's enemy, then if there were any changes, he was absolutely unable to match them alone. If the old man's true strength reached the Demon Overlord level, then even if Paglio made a move, there was almost no chance of winning. Chen-rui's mind turned quickly, but his footsteps did not stop. He had already walked to the front of the 3 people. Master! These 3 people want to see Master Xingxing. I told them that the Master doesn't see outsiders, but they actually want to barge in. In Didi's opinion, these 3 people were extremely daring. They actually dared to provoke the Cloak Gang and regarded the biggest force of the Dark Moon as nothing, but they didn't know that they had the strength to destroy the entire Cloak Gang. It turns out that they want to see Master Xingxing. Chen-rui, who had prepared for the worst, was slightly surprised. When he heard that Didi seemed to want him to teach these 3 people a lesson in public to establish his prestige, he couldn't help but shake his head secretly. They should still be giving face to Master Xingxing. Otherwise, no one in the entire Cloak Gang or even the entire Dark Moon can stop them. You're all too rude. These 3 are esteemed guests from afar. Why aren't you leaving yet? Chenrei's reprimand made the gang members, who were initially using Chenrei's power to intimidate, suddenly silenced. Since the prestige of the Aguile leader was deeply rooted in the hearts of the people, they didn't dare to ask more and dispersed. "Excuse me, please come with me." Chenrei nodded slightly to the three and politely made a "please" gesture. The gentle young man smiled slightly and nodded. He walked toward the ancient house. The two demon emperor powerhouses behind him looked at each other and followed. Both parties came to the hall. The old goblin deity was very sensitive. He immediately arranged for the maid to serve tea and snacks. "Please sit down." The young man didn't sit down. He looked at the surrounding environment with interest and said, "This must be the leader of the cloak gang, Sir Aguile? We did come from afar, and we only arrived at the Dark Moon City today. It seems that the intelligence of your organization is amazing." Of course, Chenrei wouldn't say that the analytical eyes' data showed the races and strength of the three people. He said, "The members of the Cloak Gang are all over the Dark Moon, so we still have this little ability. This is the case. I heard that the famous Master Xingxing is in the Cloak Gang. We want to meet this mechanic master. May I ask for your names and origins so that I can pass the message on behalf of you? However, it depends on the master's own will to meet or not." "Humph! You're quite arrogant," the tall and muscular man behind the young man said. "What if we must meet? Master Xingxing is the highest-ranking guest of the Cloak Gang. I have no right to force him to do anything, and I will do my best to provide protection." Although Chenrei said so, judging from the three people's public request to meet Master Xingxing, it should be related to mechanics instead of real enemies. "Can you protect him? I hate guys who are trying to be mysterious the most. Take off the broken mask on your face first." The tall and muscular man sneered, and the momentum of his body gradually exuded. Chenrei only felt a majestic murderous vibe breaking through the air and invading his heart and spleen, but the maids on both sides didn't seem to notice it. It seemed that this muscular man's power had been controlled to the realm of complete control. Chenrei's will after refined mind was extremely firm, and he had faced the demon overlord-level powerhouse more than once. He was also ravaged by Paglio during the special training. Therefore, this murderous vibe of the early stage of the demon emperor did not make him waver. His tone remained calm. "It's hard to say who will win or lose between us, but I'm not his opponent." When Chenrei said this, he looked at the seemingly weak old man. When the old man heard this, his small half-closed eyes suddenly opened, revealing a glimmer of light like a treasured knife pulled out of a waste sheath. He actually frowned when he saw the destructive breath that Chenrei deliberately released in his eyes. It seemed that he didn't gain any advantage at all. All of this fell into the eyes of the gentle young man, and he looked slightly surprised. He began to reevaluate the strength of this little leader of the dark force in his heart. He still smiled and said, "If this is the case, how will you protect the master?" Chenrei looked at the young man and said unabashedly, "To be honest, in this unfavorable situation, I can only target Sir. Sir's strength has not reached the demon emperor level, and this is my territory. Perhaps you are the best hostage. Although this plan is quite risky, it seems to be the only way." On the surface, this sentence was a kind of sincere expression of kindness, but it was actually a further bluff. It faintly revealed that he had reached the demon emperor level, and this was the lair of the Cloak Gang. This would make the other party have scruples. If they really wanted to fight, Chenrei's first reaction was to escape, then he would get Paglio and even Garatum to deal with the three of them together. It seems that before we meet the master, we met an interesting powerhouse. The gentle young man smiled. His elegant and calm temperament seemed to be innate. It made people feel like they were bathed in the spring breeze, and they couldn't feel any hostility. Compared to him, Joseph was just a hypocritical smiling tiger. "My name is Terrace. I came from the Bloody Empire." You can tell the master that the young man who gave him the Hell Feather Crystal in the Bloody Empire asked to see him. The master may have some impression. As the young man spoke, he sat down. This action made the brawny man's murderous aura suddenly converge, and the old man returned to his lazy appearance. Although Chinrui's plan was successful, he was secretly vigilant. The two powerhouses were almost obedient to the young man who was weaker than them. It seemed that the young man's identity was not ordinary. Chinrui gave a few instructions to Didi. Although the old dwarf had been standing far away outside the hall and did not hear the conversation between the two sides, he could tell that these three people were not trivial based on his observation. He immediately walked to the backyard. Soon Master Xingxing followed the old dwarf out. When he saw Terrace, he was slightly surprised. It really is Royal Highness Terrace. Royal Highness? Shinrui thought, could it be the Bloody Empires? Rumor has it that Master was kidnapped by a certain force of the Dark Moon and was forced to stay. Now it seems that the rumor is really unreliable. Terrace stood up and said with a smile. Master Xingxing's greeting was actually to remind Shinrui of Terrace's identity to avoid unnecessary trouble. Terrace was obviously an extraordinarily intelligent person, so he immediately reacted. Bloody Empires. Royal Highness? I'm so rude. Shinrui pretended to be enlightened and bowed slightly. Although it's only the first time we met, Sir Igual left a deep impression on me. Terrace nodded to return the salute. Actually, it's me who is rude, but I believe Sir won't take Montero's little joke to heart. Okay, I know Master doesn't like to beat around the bush, so I'll go straight to the point. My intention this time is to invite Master to the Bloody Empire's capital as the Vice President of the Mechanic Association. Shinrui was secretly surprised. The purpose of this Bloody Empire prince coming here is to invite Xingxing to join the Bloody Empire's Mechanic Association, and he is poaching in front of me without any taboo. This is the case. The Bloody Empire's Mechanic Association's president, the dual-specialized Master Nate, has recently realized something. He needs to meditate behind closed doors for a period of time. The association urgently needs a famous senior master to serve as the vice president. I have prepared a superior residence and the best laboratory for Master in the Bloody Empire's capital. As long as Master is willing to accept the invitation, you can get the title of the Bloody Empire, and your descendants will be hereditary nobles. Also, Master's lover, Ms. Sasa, can go with her family. This vice president doesn't have to be responsible for specific affairs, and he can also maximize all the resources of the association. He just has to represent the entire Bloody Empire's Mechanic Association to participate in some activities such as meetings on certain occasions. It was already well known that Master Xingxing was obsessed with a goblin girl from the Cloak Gang. The treatment proposed by Terrace, especially the use of the association's resources and the hereditary title of nobles, was very tempting. As Terrace spoke, his eyes turned to Chinrui. Chinrui's eyes behind the mask were still calm. There seemed to be no fluctuation. Master Xingxing is a guest of the Cloak Gang. He is completely free. As long as he is willing, even if he leaves, I won't have any opinion. When Xingxing stayed in the Bloody Empire, he was treated well by Terrace. Terrace provided him with a lot of materials for free without any request. He also gave him an extremely precious hell feather crystal when he left. Master Xingxing had a good impression of this young man, so he promised to help him within his ability. Now that Terrace came to him and offered such favorable conditions, Xingxing immediately looked contemplative. After a while, the Dark Goblin Master finally made a decision. I'm sorry, Your Highness Terrace. Although your conditions are quite generous, I don't plan to go to the Bloody Empire, nor do I plan to serve as the Vice President of the Bloody Empire Mechanic Association. Hearing this answer, Terrace was surprised. He put a magic communication talisman on the table and pondered for a moment. Although it's very regrettable, I still respect Master's opinion. If Master changes his mind, you can contact me with this communication talisman at any time. This period is unlimited. Master Xingxing looked touched. I'm sorry, Your Highness. I've let down your kindness. I can promise to make any magic items for you for free as a thank you for your hospitality in the capital. Terrace smiled and said, Then I'll thank you first. I'll have to trouble Master then. As he said, the Prince of the Bloody Empire glanced at Chinrui. I've gained a lot from meeting Master today and getting to know this admirable Sir Leader. By the way, Sir Leader, I came to the Fallen Angel Empire in an unofficial capacity this time, so… Sir Terrace, please rest assured that the people who came here today are just 3 old friends who are visiting Master. When Terrace heard the change in his address, the appreciation on his face was even stronger. I heard that the Dark Moon has a lot of novel goods and the recently discussed treasure. Before leaving, I may stay for a few days to buy some special products back. I wonder if Sir Leader is willing to arrange a guide for me? Your Highness, it's my honor. Chapter 355. Master Xingxing's rejection of Terrace was within Chunrei's expectation. In terms of the best mechanic conditions, although the Cloak Gang's existing laboratory was not as good as the Bloody Empire's, it had an advantage that the Bloody Empire, and even the entire Demon Realm didn't have, which was refining materials. Terrace might be able to provide some rare high-purity materials to Xingxing, but here, Xingxing could use all the materials with the highest purity at will. There was no comparison at all. Although he still didn't understand how Chunrei made these materials of the highest purity according to his teacher's secret method, Xingxing didn't need to study these. As long as Chunrei could continue to provide these materials to him, it would be fine. Not only that, in addition to his lover, Ms. Sasa, there was also Sky, a like-minded best friend, and the trio specialized mysterious genius who was most likely to become a mechanic Grand Master. The most important thing was that Sky's true identity was Fonsac, the vice president of the Mechanic Association of the Bloody Empire. He once mentioned to Xingxing the despicable act of the Demon Realm's top mechanic, who was also the president of the Bloody Empire's Mechanic Association, Nate, using secret techniques to seize other people's skills and the persecution of Sky's family that year. Nate's power and influence in the Bloody Empire were very strong. Even if Sky stood up directly to expose it, it would probably be useless. Therefore, Xingxing would never jump into this fire pit to be the nuisance vice president. As soon as Terrace left, the old goblin, Didi, came forward and reported something to Chunrei. Master Sky wanted to see him. Chunrei recalled Sky's abnormality before, and he immediately walked toward the backyard. Master Xingxing also followed behind. Just then, a person walked out of the backyard. It seemed that he had just left. This was also an acquaintance, the Dark Moon's top potion master, Master Aldous. Aldous' face had a hint of joy. When he saw Aguile, he nodded slightly. Chunrei also nodded in response. Aldous' sister, Sally, had never been willing to forgive her brother who lost his fortune and didn't even come to see their father before he died. After Chunrei rescued her, he arranged her to be a salesperson in the magic cloak shop. For some reason, Sally and Sky, who had just lost their wife, actually met each other's eyes. Sally actually boldly took the initiative to pursue Sky. There was a layer of yarn separating a woman from a man. The result was naturally that Sky, the old tree that met spring, would be eaten by an old cow. Sally was a very capable woman. After getting together with Sky, she also took good care of Eve and Alien. Under the mediation of her lover, Sky, the relationship with her brother, Aldous, began to thaw slowly. This made Master Aldous very grateful, and he supported their relationship in every way. Now, he came to the Cloak Gang to visit his sister. After Aldous left, Chunrei met Sky in the backyard. Under the treatment of the Flower of Mist and the Fountain of Vitality, Sky's curse had been completely lifted. His original aging appearance had also returned to the usual handsomeness of the Dark Elves. Coupled with his weathered eyes and sultry mustache, he could be considered as a charming old handsome guy. No wonder he could hook up with Sally. Sir Leader! When Sky's daughter, Alien, saw Chunrei's arrival, her big eyes glowed with excitement. She couldn't be bothered to play chess with her sister Eve. She stood up and leaped over. Alien is getting cuter. Chunrei touched Alien's head as usual. He glanced at the shy girl, Eve, who was bowing to him from afar, and added, Eve too. Eve blushed and lowered her head, not daring to look at him. Her eyes were filled with joy. Well, your father has something to talk to Sir Leader. Let's go inside and play. Don't disturb them. Sally greeted her two daughters like a real mother. Alien glanced at Chenrei reluctantly, then she pulled her sister and Sally into the house. Sally's attitude toward Aguile was much better now, but she still muttered with dissatisfaction. What's so good about this guy with a mask? The two little girls like him so much. Sky didn't care about Sally's muttering and asked, Is Terrace gone? The old handsome guy used to be an upper-class person in the Bloody Empire, so he naturally knew the Prince of the Bloody Empire. Chenrei nodded, and Sky asked again, What is his purpose in coming to Master Xingxing this time? Xingxing said, He wanted to invite me to the Bloody Empire to be the vice president of the Mechanic Association, but I didn't agree. I don't want to leave here, but Terrace didn't force me. This Prince of the Bloody Empire is pleasing to the eye. I'm annoyed by that arrogant alias. Sky nodded slightly, but his face looked dignified. Xingxing, you're wrong. I'd rather face Alias than Terrace. You must be careful of this prince who is known as a genius. Xingxing was taken aback. I think this person seems to be quite good. His reputation in the Bloody Empire is also very good. Are you mistaken? There's no mistake. Sky's eyes showed strong hatred. After I escaped from Nate's hands with my daughter under the desperate cover of my disciple, I asked this Royal Highness for help. As a result, Nate's pursuers immediately found my hiding place. If it weren't for our luck, my daughter and I would have died in the poisoned cloud abyss. If I say this is a coincidence, do you believe it? Xingxing was taken aback and kept silent. Terrace was the youngest son of the Bloody Empire's Lord Raisin. He could be described as a genius in the world. He was good at military affairs and had extraordinary wisdom. Besides, he was also good at business, politics, potion, mechanics, etc. He was almost an all-around genius. He was gentle, generous, and kind. He was very popular. The only regret was that this genius lacked the aptitude to stand side by side with wisdom in terms of strength-talent. His progress was slow. Compared with his elder brother Alias, who had reached the Demon Overlord realm and several brothers in the Demon Emperor realm, he was still lingering at the Great Demon King level. The Bloody Empire advocated force the most. Raisin the Great was one of the representatives, so in a sense, the possibility of Terrace inheriting the throne was almost zero. This also made him get along very well with his other brothers. Even Alias, who had always been arrogant and famous for his arrogance, looked at this younger brother differently. Chenrei thought of some details of his contact with him just now, and he nodded. This Terrace is by no means simple. In any case, we must be careful. If Terrace is really in the same group as Nate, then we can boldly make a guess that the invitation this time may be related to Nate's secret technique of absorbing other people's skills. Perhaps he is influenced by a trio-specialized genius master, so he wants to use unorthodox methods to achieve trio-specialized proficiency, and then become the first mechanic Grand Master of the Demon Realm? Although unorthodox methods were a new term, Sky still understood the meaning at first. He said solemnly, This possibility cannot be ruled out because Nate's secret technique has great limitations. If the other party is determined, he will be backfired, so deception is far more effective than kidnapping. If he wants to kidnap by force, I'm afraid no one can stop him. Master Xingxing smiled bitterly. I know the two people behind him. One is called Montero, and the other is called Nilsa. They are both famous Demon Emperor powerhouses of the Bloody Empire. That's not necessarily true. Chenrei's eyes lit up. It turns out that the old man is called Nilsa. Since he is not a demon overlord, then it is much easier. Peglio should have no opponent at the Demon Emperor level. Even if Terrace has this idea, he probably won't do it now and ruin his reputation. What's more, Master revealed his identity as soon as he came up. Chenrei thought quickly for a while. I need to leave for a while in a few days. I will make certain arrangements for this matter. Master Xingxing should try not to go out during this time. Also, Master Sky, although your appearance can be changed with certain items, it is difficult to guarantee that the other party will not see through you. Please be careful. Alien and Eve should also pay attention. Sky nodded solemnly. Now that his women and children were here, if his whereabouts were exposed, the consequences would be unimaginable. Besides, he would also implicate the Cloak Gang and his friends. In order to cooperate with Joseph's big gamble plan, Chinray deliberately summoned Eric's and Didi and carefully instructed them. After confirming that there was no mistake, he left the Cloak Gang. Back at the sheriff's house, Chinray told Paglio about the appearance of the two Demon Emperor powerhouses. Paglio immediately patted his chest and agreed. Since the capital's plan was about to be launched, Chinray couldn't stay in the Dark Moon for a long time. In order to unlock Paglio's seal faster, Chinray used deep analysis to record all the ancient runes on the poison dragon. The strange thing was that others couldn't see the symbols around the poison dragon, but Chinray could see them very clearly from the first time he met the poison dragon. It was probably because of the super system. These runes were not static. They were changing every hour. After long-term observation, it should be changing 12 times a day, and it would change again every 7 days. It was extremely mysterious. Judging from the previous experience in the Rainbow Valley, if the fairy dragon was asked to come to the Dark Moon to help Paglio dispel the magic, she would probably be more willing to study the runes on an enemy's corpse. Moreover, with Rala's moral integrity, any promise was unreliable, even if it was a silver box as a reward. Therefore, copying the runes to ask for advice was the safest and most effective way. However, speaking of Rala's research achievements in dragon inscription, Paglio, who had always been proud of himself, had to admit that he was impressed. Chinray compared the space he realized in the Rainbow Valley with Paglio's special training and teachings one by one, and he made new progress. The concept of territory that had been vague had faintly taken shape. It had changed from relying on the galaxy territory to being able to operate independently, but he always felt that something was missing. Perhaps he needed an opportunity to fully master the power of Migres state, which was also the most important prerequisite to break through to the next, Fecta state. The higher the level of power, the more difficult it was to break through. The same was true for the super system. He must fully master the power of the current realm before he could have the opportunity to break through to the next level. On this trip, Chinray had to go out to complete 2 things, learning ancient runes and completing the capital plan. He probably wouldn't have time to return to the Dark Moon like before. Before parting, Athena and Kia were naturally reluctant to leave. In the last 3 days, they were together almost every moment. It was extremely gentle and lingering. Fortunately, there was a guy with a bad mouth who had gone to do closed-door training. Otherwise, Chinray would definitely be crowned as a stud horse, a man who had sex 7 times in one night, a wolf for a day, and so on. In fact, compared with the usually generous Athena, the little maid who looked obedient and honest was much more active in bed. In front of her beloved man, the succubus bloomed herself unreservedly and served him wholeheartedly. The various skills inherited from the bloodline were even better than those in the love art blockbusters in the memory of a certain guy, allowing him to enjoy the happiness of love. Of course, he did not neglect the female sheriff who was cleverly regarded as the legal wife by Kia. He didn't know what method Kia used to convince Athena. On the last night before he left the Dark Moon, the little maid pulled the somewhat shy female sheriff and appeared at his bedside. A certain guy's eyes suddenly widened. He felt that his beast's blood was boiling like never before. Could this be the legendary third one? That night, it was said that the wolf's howl could be heard within 10 miles of the sheriff's house. The next day, a refreshed Chinray appeared on the road to the capital. In the whole plan, the curtain of the most critical play finally opened. In the fallen angel capital, when the figure of the palace senior consultant, Charles, swaggered and appeared at the city gate, the guards seemed a little surprised. Then, Chinray came to Isabella's house through the inner city. When Isabella learned of his arrival, she immediately greeted him and took him into the mansion. Isabella's face showed a rare seriousness. Her first sentence was, "Why do you still dare to appear publicly?" Chinray asked curiously. "Why do you ask? Did you kill Lorden?" Chinray asked noncommittally. "Is it the heir of the Lincoln family?" Is he dead? Isabella frowned and said, This matter has been investigated. When you left the capital for the Red Spirit Estate that day, Lorden, the people of the Deli family, the Ryan family and the Collateral Royal family, Mia, went to trouble you. As a result, the bodies of several people were found in the woods in a mountain. Nearby was the road to the Red Spirit Estate. Especially Lorden, he was killed in an extremely cruel way. Not even his bones were left. Only some secret method was used to detect that the remaining flesh and blood were. Isabella, what do you want to say? By now, Charles, it's useless for you to deny it. Several victim families have unanimously determined that you killed Lorden and the others. You are in big trouble now. Chinray shook his head. Why don't you ask Lorden and the others why they came to trouble me? No matter what the reason is, they are dead now, but you are still alive. This is your biggest trouble. Isabella sighed. Pierce is the chief magician of the Deli family. Leston is the son-in-law of the Ryan family, and the most promising person in the family to become the Demon Emperor. Lorden is the heir of the Lincoln family. These three are all the elder families of the capital, not to mention the royal family, Mia. This matter has been in an uproar. I'm afraid even the Royal Highness Regent can't protect you, Chinray said calmly. It's not that he can't protect me, but he may not be willing to protect me. This is a fatal disaster. I heard that your younger brother, Samuel, has escaped from the Red Spirit Estate after hearing the news. His whereabouts are still unknown. He is probably trying to return to the human world. But there is no but. Now, Isabella interrupted him. Before the guards get here, you have to leave quickly. If you can, return to the human world immediately, and never come to the demon realm again. Chapter 356. In Chinray's eyes, Isabella's beautiful face was full of anxiety and worry. There seemed to be no flaws. Chinray's mind moved, and he shook his head resolutely. No! I haven't completed the family's mission, haven't achieved the true wish in my heart, and… As Isabella was about to speak, her hand was suddenly held by Chinray. Then two fiery eyes shot over. I haven't gone to the Holy Light Mountain to pick that snow dowlet and give it to you. So, I will never leave like this. Isabella felt the heat from those hands. When she heard the last two sentences, her blue eyes finally fluctuated slightly, and a strange expression flashed across. Chinray had already felt that someone was hurrying over from outside. His heart moved, and he held her hand tightly. He added, Actually, madam. It was a maid who rushed over. She happened to see Chinray holding Isabella's hand. She was taken aback, but there was still a little panic on her face. Not good. General Doran personally led the Imperial Guards to surround this place. Isabella was shocked when she heard the words. She felt that there was a box in her hand, and the fiery hands had loosened. You go to see the regent later and hand him the things in this box personally. Just say that it is a gift from me this time. This may be my only turning point. Remember to hand it to Royal Highness Obsidian personally. Before Isabella could speak, another maid hurriedly reported. General Doran has broken in. Chinray took a deep breath and gave her a reassuring look. A loud bell-like voice sounded and echoed throughout the house. Madam Isabella, I'm ordered by the regent to lead the army to arrest the suspect, Charles. Madam, please take this person down quickly so as not to hurt the innocent people in the house. The voice appeared in front of her in an instant. It was a tall and strong man wearing a dark red armor with a mustache. His eyebrows were somewhat similar to Sergei. His eyes were overflowing with fierceness. It was Sergei's father, the second general of the Empire, Doran. Russ. He was followed by a group of heavily armed soldiers. Analytical eyes showed, race, Great Demon, mutated. Comprehensive strength assessment, A. Physique, A. Strength, A. Essence, A. Agility, A. All the mutated Great Demons who could reach the high level were the best who had been through hundreds of battles. Their actual combat power was even higher than ordinary royal families. This Doran was at the intermediate stage of the Demon Emperor, which was still weaker than Athena's father, General George. However, my father-in-law should be close to the demon overlord now. It turns out to be the famous General Doran. We met once at the last ball. You came at the right time. I've been caught by Ms. Isabella. Chenrui smiled indifferently. He didn't have the slightest awareness of causing a huge disaster. Doran waved his hand, and a few ferocious Imperial guards came up to capture Chenrui. Chenrui's eyes moved, and the Imperial guards only felt a terrifying breath. They shivered and didn't dare to step forward for a while. Doran frowned. As he was about to make a move, he heard Chenrui said, "I can walk by myself." After speaking, he didn't look at Isabella and walked out without looking back. Doran nodded slightly to Isabella and followed. Walking outside, Doran said, "Sir Charles, no matter what, your courage is admirable, but I'm also acting under orders. Before your case is concluded, it's best not to let anything unpleasant happen between us. As a senior palace consultant, I think I have the right to ask to see Royal Highness Obsidian to explain some things." Doran pondered for a moment and nodded. "Before that, you must put on this imprisonment shackle now. This is the rule." Chenrui looked at the pair of dark red shackles on a plate held by the Imperial Guard, and he slowly stretched out his hand. Suddenly he paused. This made Doran's pupils, who had been watching his movements, shrink slightly. He was about to launch a well-prepared blow. At this moment, Chenrui did not escape or resist as imagined. Instead, he obediently let the Imperial Guard put the shackles on and activated the magic circle on it one by one. Although Doran was surprised, he still breathed a sigh of relief. After all, this Charles could kill Leston and the others. It was very likely that he was a demon emperor-level powerhouse. If he really wanted to make a move, it would probably take a lot of effort. "Now, can I go see Royal Highness Obsidian? Unfortunately, those who put on the imprisonment shackles have no power." Doran's face changed immediately. There was a trace of coldness in his gloomy eyes. Since the other party had been imprisoned by the shackles of activating the magic circle, there was no threat. This pair of shackles was specially made of superb magic materials. It could greatly reduce the power of the imprisoned person, making it impossible to use talent or magic. It especially had a special restraining effect on territory. Even a demon overlord couldn't break free. Of course, since it took a long time to activate the magic circle, it was not suitable for use in battle unless Chenrui put it on without resistance just now. This answer made Chenrui silent. In fact, these changes were also expected. However, Doran didn't know that just about a year ago, there was a similar pair of shackles on this man's hand. Later, that pair of gold crystal shackles completely turned into auras. This pair of shackles was also of the same nature. Chenrui felt the conversion prompt in the super system just now, so he put on the shackles without resistance. If he wanted, he could turn this thing that could imprison a demon overlord into a pile of valuable magic dust at any time. Doran led the Imperial Guards all the way to a heavily guarded place in the inner city. It was the secret prison for serious criminals. "General Doran!" A fat guy hurriedly greeted him after hearing the news. He nodded and bowed to Doran. "Warden Capon, this is a major suspect who killed the important members of the 3 elder families, Charles. You will personally take him to Independent Prison 13 now. During this period, no one is allowed to visit without the order of the Regent. Even Madame Isabella." This is the bold, and it is said that he hooked up with the capital's flower, Charles. "And Prison 13? "Yes." The fat man was taken aback, but he didn't dare to ask more. He immediately brought people to take Chenrui away. There was a sentry every 5 steps in the secret prison. The soldiers coming and going were orderly, and the security was quite strict. Walking into the passage, he could smell a damp and stinky smell. He could also faintly hear the sound of whipping and wailing in the distance. "My name is Capon. I'm the warden here. In this secret prison, I'm the most powerful." As soon as the fat man entered the prison, he didn't have the respect and obedience he had in front of Capon. He completely changed his attitude. No matter what kind of big shot you were before you came here, now throw your original dignity and nobility down your ass. After listening to the fat man's declaration, Chinray nodded cooperatively. Sir Capon, I understand. A cold light flashed in Capon's small eyes. Some people in prison were arrogant, some were angry, and some were afraid. The indifference shown by this Charles was the most annoying kind. Many people were like this when they first came in, but it wouldn't take long for this annoying expression to become begging and pitiful because this guy was going to prison 13. The prisons they passed by were dark and filthy. When some of them saw someone approaching, they immediately shouted and even stretched out their hands as if they wanted to grab something. Some of them were lying on the ground or sitting in their cages, as if they had lost all hope. What was even more frightening were the cruel scenes. The most ear-piercing were the torture rooms. Even the bystanders shuddered when they heard the screams coming from afar. As for the female prisoners, the miserable treatment they received was almost indescribable in words. In fact, these prisons along the way were all relatively ordinary prisoners. They could be humiliated and tortured at will. This method was mainly used as a warning. Some of the felons in the real secret prison might be big shots, or they might have the possibility of turning over. Unless specifically instructed by the higher-ups, they would not be treated excessively. This Charles in front of him killed the important members of the 3 elder families and the royal family, including the heir of the Lincoln family. He was obviously not in this category, but prison 13 itself was a natural hell. There was even no need for unnecessary torture. Having said that, to be able to brutally kill the people of the 3 elder families, especially Leston, this guy's ferocity and strength were indeed extraordinary. For a fierce person, the fat man still had a certain degree of fear in his heart, but when he saw the shackles on Chinray's hands, he was a little more confident. Okay, now hand over all the extra items on you. I will return them to you when you go out. Of course, but there are very important items in it. You must keep them well. Otherwise, you can't afford the consequences. Chinray took off the space ring on his finger without hesitation. Remember to return it to me intact when you go out. When the fat man heard that there were valuable items, he became greedy and directly ignored the following words. A prisoner who is almost 100% on death row still wants to go out. Prison 13 was a separate prison. To be precise, it was located underground. Complicated magic circle imprints could be seen along the way. Although it looked cold and damp, there was no rotten stench. It seemed quite tidy. There was no one else in the relatively spacious prison. Chinray was the only resident. Sir Charles, please. Chinray walked in slowly, and the prison door closed automatically. Capon showed a strange smile. Slowly enjoy the few good days you have left, sir. After that, the fat man turned around and left. He couldn't wait to count the belongings in the space ring that he just got. The cage began to show a strange light. Chinray only felt his body sink. He actually became dozens of times heavier for no reason. It turned out to be the gravity cage. Although most of Chinray's power was imprisoned by the shackles, he had trained in the gravity training ground for many years. This level was just child's play. With a thought, he still sat down cross-legged. Soon, the super system sent a warning of poison invasion. It seemed that this prison 13 was really extraordinary. However, poison, it only increased the amount of aura a little. Chinray didn't refuse anything. No matter how small the mosquito was, it was still meat. The hospitality of prison 13 was far more than that. The magic circle of the cage could further limit and weaken the prisoner's power. In addition to gravity and poison, there would also be lightning attacks every hour. The internal and external torment was unbearable. This prison was specially built to imprison powerhouses. It could destroy the will and power of the imprisoned person step by step. In the case of losing power, the torture of gravity alone was enough to make any powerhouse unbearable. For Chinray, gravity and poison basically didn't need to be considered. Although lightning was a bit troublesome, his anti-magic and damage absorption physique reduced this trouble to a minimum. Compared with the lightning of the fairy dragon, These electric powers could only help him kill the bacteria on his body. Now he only needed to wait patiently for Isabella to hand over the things to Obsidian. Killing the heirs and important members of the elder families was indeed a big trouble, but he believed that Obsidian couldn't refuse the temptation of that benefit. Even if he really broke the sky, Obsidian would probably play the male version of Goddess Nuwa in the demon realm. The capital's inner city, the Lincoln family mansion. Sir Patriarch, Madam, Charles has been escorted to the secret prison by General Doran. According to Warden Kabang, he has been detained in Prison 13, and the magic circle of the prison has been fully activated. The woman on the side gritted her teeth and shouted, "Great! Sartre, you go and contact Kabang now to torture Charles for me. We must not let the murderer who killed our child die too easily. Don't worry." The patriarch of the Lincoln family, Sartre, looked much calmer. He sneered. Prison 13 was jointly built by a Grand Master and several masters tens of thousands of years ago. I'm afraid it is the only special place in the entire empire. Staying in there was equivalent to any kind of torture. The poison in the prison alone can erode his power step by step. Even a demon overlord level powerhouse can't resist it when he is imprisoned. Let him enjoy it for a few days first, then we will go and visit the Sir Senior Advisor. I believe we are not the only one who has this idea. By the way, is there any reaction from Isabella? Sartre asked. Did she meet the regent to plead for mercy? It's very strange. She doesn't seem to have any movement. You go down first and continue to monitor closely for me. Report immediately if there is any movement. Yes. The capital's inner city, Isabella's mansion. Isabella sat in the room with an open box on the table. She was the only one in the entire room. Her white jade-like hand was holding something. The shock on her face just now had gradually faded. She closed her beautiful eyes gently, and the words that the man once said appeared in her mind again. I will miss you every day, madam. I haven't gone to the holy mountain of light yet to pick that snow dellet personally for you. After a long time, her slender eyelashes raised slightly, revealing her emerald-like eyes. There was a faint sadness in her eyes, then it turned into a kind of loneliness, and finally the coldness of ignorance. Bang! The object in her hand had been shattered. The dark liquid spilled on the ground through her fingers, soaked in, and disappeared instantly. Chapter 357. 3 days had passed. There was still no response. Chenrei felt a little strange in his heart. Although he didn't know if Isabella had encountered any problems, he wouldn't completely pin his hopes on that woman. At this time, the most reliable person was himself. However, he unexpectedly had a gain in the past few days. This gain was actually the weakening magic circle of the confinement shackles and cage in his hands. Chenrei tried it. Both confinement shackles and cage had a special effect on restraining territory power. As a magic circle expert and a top mechanic master, that kind of confinement magic circle aroused Chenrei's strong interest. He was not only interested in the magic circle itself, but also a sudden idea through this kind of magic circle, he could deduce the mystery of the territory. Even the makers of these devices, those deceased masters or grand masters, didn't expect that one day someone would have such an incredible idea. They also didn't expect that this was a super mechanic and magic circle master with the insane skill of deep analysis. Moreover, that idea was really put into practice. There was no way to go, but there was a glimmer of hope at the end of the tunnel. After looking at the problem from a different perspective, Chenrei unexpectedly touched some areas that he hadn't thought of before. Of course, the knowledge of magic circle and mechanics played a very key role. With the progress of deep analysis, even if he couldn't completely crack those complex and esoteric magic circles, the deduction of the territory began to become traceable. These confinement magic circles made Chenrei unable to experiment with new territory insights, but he had the super system. He could use skills at will in the training ground, and there were no time and frequency restrictions in reality. After his body adapted to the baptism of lightning and entered the training ground state, combining the positive and negative insights and his own understanding, Shinrei's stagnant Migres experience value finally began to rise continuously. These days, there were people who delivered food to him. They were placed outside the cage. This cage was very strange. There was a gravitational field inside, and nothing could be felt from the outside. Shinrei was not afraid of poison, but he was not interested in the junk food that was hard to swallow. There was plenty of food in the storage warehouse, but to prevent surveillance, he usually ate late at night. On the surface, Charles hadn't eaten for 3 days. He didn't know if it was a hunger strike, or he was tortured to the point that he didn't even have the strength to reach out to get food from the cage. On the 4th day, a person finally appeared in front of the cage of prison 13. However, he was an unexpected person. Military Minister Rommel. Sir Charles. Shinrei's eyes, which had been closed, slowly opened and glanced at Rommel. "You've been wronged, Your Excellency." A faint smile hung on Rommel's face. "Lord Rommel, are you here to laugh at me?" Shinrei said with some difficulty. He seemed to be trying his best to maintain a calm tone under the pressure of gravity, but he couldn't hide his weak state. Rommel saw it, and shook his head. "I'm here to help Sir Charles, and I have a reason that Your Excellency can't refuse." "Can't refuse? Doesn't Sir Charles want to leave this damn place?" Shinrei's tone had a hint of contempt. "The people of the 3 elder families plus the royal family, especially the heir of the Lincoln family, all died in my hands. Do you think I can leave just because I want to? By the way, I have to leave during the execution. Let's look at it from another perspective. Lorden is indeed the heir of the Lincoln family, but he was born from a wife who married a collateral relative of the royal family. Furthermore, he has the bloodline of the fallen angel royal family. Patriarch Sartre is largely under the pressure of the royal family. No one wants the family business that they have built with hard work to eventually merge into the royal family, especially the elder families. Leston is just a son-in-law who married into the royal family. Although he has strength and potential, he is an outsider after all. Besides, he is already a dead person. How can he compare with the value that a living person can provide? As for the loss of Pierce and the collateral royal family, I can promise on behalf of the elder families that as long as Your Excellency provides enough benefits, everything in the past can be forgiven." Rommel paused, glanced at Shinrei's expressionless face, and said, "As far as I know, Sir Charles should be the same as Sir Nero, a human aristocrat. There is no need to hide this information. I have confirmed it. What I'm interested in now is what kind of benefits can Your Excellency bring me? Perhaps it can match with the title of the palace's high-rank consultant awarded by Royal Highness Obsidian? I have to praise you for having a keen sense of smell. You actually smelled the smell of benefits." Shinrei praised, but he was not too surprised. Samuel's identity would definitely be investigated after this incident. His human identity might not be hidden from the insiders. Some things of the Red Spirit would also be known, such as the cooperation with Kanita and Josh. "It's a pity that I don't have the benefits that you can get." Rommel was slightly surprised. "Even the elder family that I represent doesn't have this qualification?" Shinrei did not answer, but he asked with interest. "I remember that General Doran once ordered that no one can come here to see me without the order of the regent. Sir Rommel is here today. Are you here on behalf of all the elder families or Royal Highness Regent?" This was already a disguised refusal. Rommel frowned slightly. "Sir Charles, you seem to be very calm. Do you still have some expectations for a woman, or can it be called fantasy?" Shinrei did not answer, but he waited for him to continue. "Your Excellency is a very persistent person, which is admirable. But I have to sigh. You have always been used by that woman." Rommel sneered. "You know, Isabella and I are political enemies. Under her instigation, you killed my coachman, Jardel. Therefore, in order to get rid of you, an enemy on her side, I instructed Lorden to launch an ambush on you. Unfortunately, they all died in your hands. In your opinion, this should be the case, right? If I say that I am not the mastermind behind the ambush, do you believe it?" Shinrei was still silent. "According to my latest intel, before you were taken away by General Doran, You should have given her something and told her to pass it to the Royal Highness Regent, but what you don't know is that she has not gone to see the Regent until now." Chenrui's eyes flashed, and a hint of surprise finally flashed across. Rommel's intention today is obvious. He is interested in the huge benefits that I may have at hand. According to this aspect, the possibility that the elder families or Rommel directly sent Lorden to ambush me is very small. Of course, it is not ruled out that he only learned about the existence of certain benefits after this incident happened. Although it sounds illogical that Isabella is the mastermind, she is worthy of suspicion in any case. If it is true, what is her motive? Charles is dead, and Obsidian's benefits are also lost. Is it to provoke the relationship between the elder families and Obsidian? Isn't Isabella Obsidian's confidant? Or this decision is related to that secret force? On the surface, that woman is intimate with me and even a little ambiguous, but she is such a killer behind my back. It seems that she really lives up to the name of Devil's Snare Flower. Chenrui thought of the scene when Lorden was induced to self-destruct, and he thought of the evil voodoo that he had been infected with. He seemed to have realized something. Rommel saw Chenrui's contemplative look, and he seized the opportunity to say, "In your current situation, I don't have to deceive you. As long as you agree to cooperate, our elder families, as the victims of this matter, can naturally be exempted from accountability. When the truth is revealed, that ruthless woman will get the punishment she deserves. You can deal with her however you want by then." This proposal made Chenrui's brain turn quickly for a while. Isabella is a capable general under Obsidian, and Obsidian has always been restricted by the elder families. If I cooperate with the elder families, it may cause some conflicts between the two sides. In the long run, it can shake Obsidian's foundation. However, the identity and business in the human world are fabricated. The so-called huge benefits are just paying for it at present. It is not the time to harvest it yet. Moreover, in my plan, Obsidian is a launching center, which cannot be changed. Therefore, I can't cooperate with the elder families now, and I have to use this to prove my determination to Obsidian. In fact, as long as Obsidian stands on my side in this matter, it can already deepen the contradiction between the two sides. This is also the reason why I didn't destroy the corpses after killing the 4 people. The only way to achieve this goal is to let Obsidian see greater benefits that are enough for him to openly oppose the elder families. Unfortunately, I can't believe you. Chenrui figured this out. With a firm look in his eyes, he raised his hand with difficulty and pointed to the cage. Even if what you say makes sense, even if it is in this situation. Rommel's pupils contracted slightly. Sir Charles, this joke doesn't seem very funny. Although I have always been patient with you, the old guys behind me just lack patience at this time. You must think clearly. This is a matter of life and death. Chenrui replied without thinking. I think I have thought about it very clearly, and I will not change it. Sir Minister of Military Affairs, it is too difficult to talk to you in this environment of gravity and poison. Please forgive me for my rudeness. Seeing that Chenrui closed his eyes in front of him and stopped talking, Rommel raised his eyebrows. This may be the worst decision Sir has made in your life. Hearing Rommel's footsteps fading away, Chenrui slowly opened his eyes. Rommel's arrival made him more suspicious of Isabella. Of course, he had never really trusted this Devil's Snare Flower, but now he could no longer wait passively in the secret prison like this. He must find an opportunity to take the initiative to attack. Due to the deduction of the confinement magic array, not long before Rommel's arrival, his comprehension of the domain happened to have reached a very critical moment, and he could break through that layer of paper at any time. It was better to seize that glimmer of precious insight and enter the training ground to train first. Not knowing how long had passed in the training ground, when Chenrui was awakened by a strange warning and opened his eyes, there were already 3 people in front of him. He only knew the leader, the patriarch of the Lincoln family, Sartre. Lincoln. This patriarch of one of the elder families had reached the early stage of the demon emperor. His usually smiling eyes were flashing with a cold light. The other 2 people, a man and a woman, both had the strength of the early stage of the great Demon King. Their faces were full of hatred. Judging from the posture of the three people, they were definitely not here to negotiate with him like Rommel. After the negotiation broke down, they started to take revenge and complain. The other party took the initiative to look for a gap. It should be the best time for Chunrei to take action, but forget about the two great demon kings. Sartre is a demon emperor. Does he have a chance? Charles, I don't know what kind of hatred you have with my son, Lorden. You actually used such a cruel method to kill him without leaving his bones. Sartre said sternly. These two people, one is Leston's widow, Teresa, and the other is Pierce's nephew, Tante. You won't die too easily today. Strange images and voices suddenly appeared in front of the cage. It should be said that the reason for your failure is because someone provided the wrong information. This time you were just used by someone. I don't want to have too deep of a grudge with the Lincoln family, so I can spare your life, but you must first tell me who provided my whereabouts and information. Who instructed you to kill me? Then there was a burst of silver light. It was the scene that Chunrei recorded with the recording stone that day. Sartre looked slightly surprised, and he frowned. I didn't kill your son, but he was used by someone. Then, someone used a special method to trigger some kind of power in him to self-destruct. Chunrei shook his head, and his gaze fell on Teresa and Tante. As for Leston's three people, I have no hatred with them. Since they came to kill me, they should be prepared to be killed. This is the most basic rule. Sartre had recovered from his thoughts and surprise, and he said coldly, I don't know how you created those illusions just now, but even if you didn't kill Lorden, he died because of you. No matter how sweet your words are today, you can't escape the fate of being torn into pieces. Do I have to obediently wait to be killed just because he wants to kill me? Chunrei wanted to retort, but it was obviously meaningless to argue with Sartre. Not to mention that there were two enemies who could kill with just a look. The elder family was powerful, and they would not care about the so-called right or wrong at all, even if they were the unreasonable party. In addition, Rommel's previous interest negotiations had broken down, and he had now become the source of all the blame. It was impossible for him to let it go today. The fist was the real truth. Many times it was very sad for this truth, but he had to admit this truth. Do you think you can kill me today? Chunrei asked faintly. In fact, when Sartre appeared, he had already been secretly brewing and adjusting his power. You can defeat the joint forces of Leston, Pierce and others, so your strength should be infinitely close to or even reach the Demon Emperor realm. I haven't fought for many years. Usually, I may not have the confidence to win, but... Sartre's body was steaming with a faint flame visible to the naked eye. He said confidently, This is prison 13 of the secret prison. I have a 100% chance of winning against an enemy who has stayed here for 7 days and hasn't eaten. What I want to ask now is, after the magic circle of the prison is removed, do you still have the strength to stand up and die? Chapter 358. Sartre was cunning. Such a tone was a kind of psychological tactic to a certain extent. He had considerable confidence in this prison 13. More than one demon overlord had been imprisoned here, let alone a demon emperor, like Charles. The special bone-eroding toxin alone could quickly corrode the power of the body. The role of the lightning was not only torture, but more importantly, it could accelerate the spread and erosion of the toxin. Coupled with the special imprisonment shackles on his hands, there was no need for any additional torture tools. It could be said that Sartre should be foolproof this time. Don't worry, you will die inch by inch. It will never be too fast. Despite saying this, Sartre still did not relax his vigilance, but he didn't know that in fact, after he had a preconceived notion that prison 13 was reliable, it was equivalent to relaxing his vigilance. The enemy in front of him was not a demon emperor, but in a sense, he was more unimaginable than a demon emperor or even a demon overlord. At this time, the flashing magic symbols in the prison began to extinguish one by one. It seemed that Sartre had probably bribed the fat warden to torture and kill his biggest enemy step by step. Is your hatred really as strong as it seems on the surface? Although Lorden is your son, I heard from Rommel that you made him your heir because you were pressured by the royal family, because the Lincoln family will definitely be incorporated into the royal family in the future. Me killing Lorden should be what you want deep in your heart, right? I feel a little sympathy for your dead son now. Sartre snorted coldly and did not explain. He scolded Rommel in his heart. Some things belong to the hidden rules. Which elder family doesn't have dirty tricks? Rommel actually revealed this matter to Charles, and the other party even said it in front of the two juniors of the outer family. A strong anger surged in his heart for a while. Chinrui glanced at the other two with sarcasm on his face without hesitation. Similarly, you came to seek revenge. It is just revenge after the interest negotiation between me and the elder family represented by Rommel broke down. If I promised him at the beginning, then you should be flattering me with a forced smile now, not like this. Is hatred that can be easily exchanged for benefits still real hatred? Sartre originally wanted to use words to shake Chinrui, but he did not expect to be moved by him. He knew that he could not continue to talk nonsense with him. At this time, the magic array had been completely closed, and the mystic cage pillars began to automatically shrink back into the ground. Except for the shackles in his hands, Chinrui was no longer bound. After the magic circle was closed, Chinrui's body went limp, as if he was about to collapse after the gravity was lifted. Sartre did not give him any chance to recover. His whole body was blazing with flames, and he launched a long-prepared attack. Sartre did not underestimate Chinrui. He launched a heavy blow as soon as he arrived, intending to destroy his opponent's remaining resistance. Just as Sartre's fist was about to touch Chinrui's body, the target suddenly disappeared. This blow missed, and the powerful force hit the ground from the air. This specially made prison ground did not even tremble, which showed its sturdiness. Sartre's confident blow failed, and his heart was slightly shocked. The shackles can prohibit all skills, including territory. Why can this, Charles, cast a teleportation skill similar to the great demon family? At this moment, including Teresa and Tante, they suddenly felt their minds shaking. A strange bleak breath came. The indestructible prison 13 began to decay and crack rapidly, and the power of the three was rapidly weakened by a strange force. They involuntarily felt a strong sense of tiredness and exhaustion. For a while, their bodies and spirits seemed to have aged a lot. Illusion? Teresa and Tante wiped their eyes at the same time. Only Sartre's face was full of horror. This is the power of territory. And he can faintly feel that although the power of this territory is not particularly amazing, it may be because the enemy has been imprisoned for too long and his strength has declined. The quality, which is the level of the realm, seems to be higher than his perception. The most amazing thing is not this, but that Charles can actually cast territory while wearing the shackles of the imprisonment territory. This is simply incredible. No, why did the shackles that can imprison a demon overlord suddenly disappear? Is it a trick that Warden Cabin deliberately played? Or Doran? Or this person himself? Sartre didn't have time to think about it. He shouted and instantly transformed into his combat form. A long sword appeared in his hand. The intense flame burning on the sword turned into a ferocious giant beast, pouncing toward Chinrui. However, this giant beast began to weaken and dim at a speed visible to the naked eye during its flight. Finally, when it got close, it was blocked by the translucent blue shield that appeared around Chinrui. The shield trembled for a while. After the giant beast dimmed and disappeared, it also disintegrated. Chinrui's eyes flashed with brilliance. This was the first time he used the shield to take a powerful attack from a demon emperor head-on. The reason was not only the ability of the shield to absorb damage, but more importantly, the territory. This was the first time he used the territory he comprehended in actual combat after training in the prison through the training ground. Autumn. It was also called Autumn Territory. It was the name given by Chinrui to this territory. It effectively combined the negative power he comprehended from Shura. It could absorb and weaken the enemy's power for his own use. Although the concept and effect were far from reaching the perfect realm, and the time was limited, it had already separated from the galaxy territory skill that came with the super system. It was a territory in the true sense that was cast independently. By now, he could be considered to have truly taken a decisive step in the Migres state. Compared with this, the previous explorations could only be regarded as stumbling. Now, he had found the real direction. Next, he could take a big step forward. The feeling of casting territory was completely different from consuming aura and star power with the super system's skills. This was a feeling of full control, as if he was the core of a small world. He could arbitrarily control the power of every atom in this world, but it was still far from the true degree of control. The two early great demon kings on the side were stunned by this change. They tried their best to resist the influence of autumn territory in the corner. They didn't dare to move forward. In their eyes, this was already a battle between high-level powerhouses beyond their level. Sartre had recovered from the horror. He felt the strangeness of this territory. His long sword faintly emitted a blue light, which merged with the flames on his body. He quickly waved his sword in a strange trajectory in the air. There was a group of strange electric light that was constantly expanding in the prison, emitting this tyrannical power. Although it was constantly absorbed and weakened, the speed of this electric light's generation was far higher than the rate of absorption. In the blink of an eye, it had filled the entire territory. This was Sartre's ultimate move, Thunder Light. He was a dual cultivator of magic and strength. All his qualities had reached a dash, which was very balanced. This ultimate move combined more magic power and spirit power. In the battle in this territory, magic power was obviously more effective than ordinary energy attacks. Sartre didn't expect this ultimate move to defeat this terrifying opponent. He just wanted to take the opportunity to find a breakthrough in the territory. As long as he found a breakthrough, he could maximize his territory and then defeat the opponent. However, the effect of this move was much stronger than Sartre imagined. In terms of territory, Chenrei was just a novice after all. It was his first time using it in actual combat. He felt that this group of lightning was not only powerful, but the most annoying thing was the interference force, which made him unable to continue to condense the territory's power successfully. The entire territory still looked normal on the surface, but in fact, it was on the verge of collapse. Chenrei's eyes flashed, and he actually rushed directly towards Sartre. Sartre was taken aback. Just now, the opponent had obviously used the strange territory power to gain the upper hand, but he couldn't understand why he didn't continue to use this advantage. Instead, he adopted an extremely unwise frontal attack. Sartre was puzzled, but he didn't hesitate at all. Thunder Light was launched at Chenrei with all his strength. Chenrei didn't avoid it. He opened his 5 fingers, and a huge light ball appeared, whistling towards Sartre. The two energies passed through each other and attacked both of them respectively. Looking at the situation, both of them were actually going to suffer. Sartre immediately launched teleportation to avoid the light ball. In fact, it was a misjudgment. Without using Scorching Dragon Possession, the power of Aurora Shot was far smaller than expected. It wouldn't have much effect on a demon emperor like him. Sartre was still misled by the Autumn territory at the beginning. The battle was ever-changing. A small misjudgment could lead to the loss of the whole game. Chenrei didn't use Scorching Dragon Possession because he had his own considerations. Once he used Scorching Dragon Possession, he couldn't use any skills for 24 hours after the cooldown, including the Stargate. This place was different from the Crystal Valley previously. There was no suitable place to launch the Stargate. The current battle situation was advantageous to him. He didn't know what enemies or unexpected situations he would encounter later, so he must leave a way out for himself. As soon as Sartre stabilized his body, the opponent's figure also appeared in front of him in an instant. Another teleportation. A strong sense of crisis rose in Sartre's heart. Years of experience made him instinctively stab at the vital part of Chenrei's chest, forcing him to dodge or save himself to resolve his own crisis. However, this was another mistake. The opponent didn't intend to dodge at all, so Sartre's sword pierced through his chest. At the same time, a dagger also appeared in Chenray's hand. Before Sartre could react, it pierced into his heart like lightning. This should be the first time Chenray used a weapon in a real battle. It was also a secret weapon that he made himself. Searing Shadow, Dagger, Legendary Grade Magic Dagger. Attributes: double attack speed, weaken the enemy's defense, increase wound laceration by 100%, certain chance to produce paralysis. It must be said that this was a very insidious weapon. The acceleration attack and defense breaking alone were already very powerful, not to mention the miraculous effect of laceration and paralysis. It could be said to be the best weapon for assassins. Sartre looked at the dagger in his heart in disbelief. He only felt waves of terrible pain. The entire wound seemed to be torn by the sharp teeth of a ferocious beast. It was hard to believe that this was just a wound caused by a small dagger. He had lived a comfortable life for many years, and he hadn't felt this thrilling pain for a long time. Not only in terms of physical functions, but also psychologically, he seemed to have lost his original ability to react. He was hit in the vital part by a dagger. This dagger also happened to have a paralysis effect. Demons were still different from humans. This kind of injury that was fatal to ordinary humans did not make Sartre lose all his strength. With a shake of his wrist, the accumulated, thunderlight blade burst out. For a moment, Charles was surrounded by lightning. He was blown away and fell to the ground. At the moment of flying out, the blade-like palms swept past Sartre's shoulder with a faint light. The sharp sword chi in the air left another terrifying wound on Sartre's shoulder. After all, the physique of a demon emperor was no trivial matter. Otherwise, this, or a blade, could remove an arm. The continuous pain caused Sartre to scream. An inexplicable sense of fear welled up in his heart. He was originally confident that it would be a piece of cake, but he didn't expect such a turn of events to happen. Although Chenray's power of Migre's state had made a great breakthrough and he had basically mastered territory, there was still a big gap between his current state and the Demon Emperor level. Secret weapons such as the Scorching Dragon and the 7 artifacts were not used. The reason why he could have the result of a draw with the early stage of the Demon Emperor was mainly because of the surprise tactics. When Sartre arrived, he had already been thinking about this tactic. From the very beginning of the shackles, he had been creating and using Sartre's illusion. As a result, he had unexpectedly risked his life for Sartre's. Sure enough, it worked wonders. Sartre's horror at this time was far from being described in words. Shoulder is seriously injured. Heart is seriously injured. There is also a strange sense of numbness. I don't know if I'm poisoned. How many years has it been since I've suffered such a serious injury? What made him even more afraid was that the man who had just been stabbed in the chest and suffered the powerful elemental power of the glazed thunder actually stood up slowly again. His sharp gaze was like a blade that penetrated Sartre's heart and spleen. It was full of powerful fighting spirit. He completely ignored the blood flowing out of his chest. In fact, Chenray's injury was not light. Without the Scorching Dragon possession, the power of a Demon Emperor was indeed not something he could withstand in his current state. Especially that powerful, glazed thunder, exploded from the inside out. It almost made his body collapse. Even though he had regeneration, damage absorption, and anti-magic physique, he could hardly bear it. Now his whole body seemed to be torn apart, but he still suppressed the severe pain with great willpower and stood up. Only by standing up himself could it be possible to make the opponent fall. Not knowing if it was due to the serious injury in his heart, Sartre suddenly felt a heart-wrenching fear. His strength was weakened a little for no reason. In fact, it was not that he did not have the power to fight the last battle now. If he activated the territory, there might be a hope of winning. However, Sartre was no longer the capable and brave young blade under the Lord of Midnight Sunday. His true courage and fighting spirit had been worn away by the pleasure and intrigue all day long. He had only one thought now: escape and never fight with this terrifying man again. An enemy who had lost his fighting spirit and courage, no matter how powerful he was just an empty shell that had lost its soul. Chenrui saw the opponent's timidity, so he gritted his teeth to suppress the pain. As he was about to continue to take the initiative to attack Sartre, he suddenly had a warning. With a wave of his hand, he had already grabbed 2 crossbows that seemed to be dipped in poison. The direction of the crossbows was from Teresa and Tante. Since the autumn territory had disappeared because it could not be maintained, the 2 of them had regained their usual strength. Tante just saw that Chenrui was fighting against the demon Emperor Sartre, and even faintly had the upper hand. He knew that his strength was not enough to be pinched by Chenrui. Seeing Chenrui's fierce gaze, he was afraid that he would be implicated, so he quickly pointed at Teresa and shouted, "It's her!" Teresa was holding a magic crossbow in her hand. Her chest was heaving up and down. Her face was mixed with nervousness and fear, but there was still some hatred in her eyes. Chenrui suddenly frowned and turned his head to look. Sartre had taken advantage of this precious opportunity to escape to the gate of the prison with all his might. Then, he activated some mechanism, and the prison gate began to close slowly. The speed of the demon Emperor was too fast for Chenrui to catch up. Only Tante rolled and crawled over, begging Sartre to open the door loudly. However, Sartre didn't care so much at this time. He continuously activated the mechanism, and the sound of several gates closing was heard. Although the confinement cage was no longer in use, the entire independent prison cell 13 had been tightly closed. It was equivalent to an even larger cage. "It's over!" Tante almost collapsed. As soon as he met Chenrui's cold gaze, he quickly remembered that there was still this terrifying enemy in front of him. He quickly got up and knelt on the ground. "Sir, please spare my life. I'm only here by my family's order. Pierce is just my distant uncle. We rarely meet even on normal days. That old guy is looking for his own death. He actually went against Sir." In order to beg for his life, Tante slandered his dead uncle in an ugly manner. A strong disgust surged in Chenrui's eyes. Without giving him a chance to finish speaking, Chenrui moved his hand, and Tante's face had been hit heavily. The sound of broken bones sounded, and he suddenly fell to the ground. Blood gradually flowed out. It was unknown whether he was dead or alive. After Chenrui knocked Tante down, he turned his gaze to Teresa, who had just attacked him with a crossbow. Teresa's heart trembled. Knowing that she was going to die, she gritted her teeth and said, "I have already been married once. Later, I married him as a tool to win over Leston. I don't have any feelings for him. Moreover, as you said, hatred that can be exchanged for benefits is not real hatred at all. But if he dies, I will be used as a tool to marry other valuable people, so I hate you. I hate this hopeless life." Chenrui was silent for a while. Behind the glamorous, noble, and luxurious clothes of the children of large families, there were too many involuntary sorrows. His hands still moved. Teresa responded, but she only fainted. "There is only hope if you live." Chenrui covered his heavily injured chest and said this sentence. It was unknown whether he was talking to her or himself. "Damn lunatic!" The sound of Sartre gnashing his teeth came from outside the prison. It should have been transmitted through some kind of magic device. "Doran and the Imperial Guards will arrive here soon. At that time, they will directly execute you for attempting to escape. Don't even think about escaping. Even if you break free from the shackles, you definitely can't break out of this sealed prison with the power of the demon Emperor alone. I must see with my own eyes how you will be smashed into pieces." Chenrui ignored Sartre. He was just a dog that didn't even dare to bite people. "The wind is starting to move. Then, before the storm comes, let's add a little lightning," Chenrui said lightly. There was already a walnut-sized ball in his hand. Tiny jumping runes began to appear on the ball. Chapter 359. General Doran. Russ was taken aback after receiving the urgent news from the secret prison, and he immediately rushed to the secret prison. Just as he was about to arrive, he heard a loud noise. Then, the earth shook and the mountains shook as if there was a landslide. Dweluan's mutated demon horse showed a rather panicked expression and almost threw him off its back. This loud noise was no less than a thunderclap in the middle of the night, and the magnitude of the tremor was quite large. It almost affected half of the inner city. For a while, lights were lit everywhere, and many people who were alarmed came out to check the situation. The direction of the loud noise was the secret prison. Doran abandoned his mount without hesitation. His figure was like the wind, and he had disappeared on the spot. The secret prison, which had always been strict, was in a mess at this time. The prison 13 in the independent courtyard had completely collapsed. Affected by this terrifying power, most of the prisons in the secret prison were seriously damaged. The fat warden, Kabang, who was sweating profusely, loudly ordered the jailers to hunt down the prisoners who took the opportunity to escape, but no one dared to go forward to die for the biggest prisoner. Charles looked a little embarrassed at this time, but no one dared to despise this terrifying man because this prisoner had just destroyed the most unbreakable prison 13 from the inside. As a matter of fact, that was the strongest prison for imprisoning demon emperors and even demon overlords. In fact, Chunrui himself was also secretly relieved that Zeri's power was much stronger than he thought. After fully lifting the power of the dragon inscription, Chunrui specially took out the items from the storage space to set up a protective magic circle and took out the demon shield. However, the terrifying power destroyed the magic circle in an instant. Fortunately, there was the demon shield, the number one defense equipment in the demon realm. Otherwise, this mistake would be huge. Of course, he could also use the Stargate to escape to a point far away from the capital, but this was obviously not what he wanted. Seeing the terrifying enemy walking in his direction step by step, Sartre's face was full of panic. He would rather run away under the watchful eyes of the public than fight with this crazy guy again. If he didn't see the opportunity early and desperately escape from the prison just now, he, the current patriarch of the Lincoln family, would have become history like the collapsed prison 13. Charles! A loud shout came from the air, drowning out all the noise. The jailers of the secret prison breathed a sigh of relief. The second general of the empire, Doran Ruth, had finally arrived. Sartre's heart was finally at ease. At least he didn't have to face that madman. Fatty Kabang, who had just calmed down a little, felt uneasy. No matter what, he was directly responsible for today's incident. Chinrui raised his head and saw Dweluan, who was floating in the air. Dweluan looked down from above and saw the chaos in the entire prison with the help of the moonlight, especially the scene around prison cell 13. Surprise flashed across his eyes, but more of it was a bone-chilling chill. Chinrui stared at Doran, who was slowly landing. He didn't panic at all, and he still maintained a calm tone. General Doran, I once asked you to meet the Regent Royal Highness Obsidian. I remember your answer is that the person with the imprisonment shackles has no power. Now then, I have the right. Seeing the other party raising his empty wrist in a demonstration, Doran's face became gloomier. Of course, I will let your corpse have this right. If Sir General really wants to do this, then there will be more than one corpse to meet Royal Highness Obsidian in the future. It is very likely that Sir General and the patriarch of the Lincoln family behind you, as well as everyone here. Shameless boasting! I want to see how capable you, the so-called senior consultant, are. A great sword had appeared in Doran's hand. This sword was 3 meters long. It was the weapon commonly used by the second general of the Empire, Soul Crusher. It seemed that although Doran showed contempt in his words, he still attached great importance to this opponent. He was ready to go all out. I believe you have seen the situation in Prison 13. This is actually not my true strength, but with the help of something. This thing. I can still use it once. This sentence made Doran and Sartre's faces change at the same time. Even if the power of the Demon Emperor is not restrained, it is definitely impossible to destroy Prison 13. Even an ordinary demon overlord can't do it. The strength of Charles should not have reached the realm of demon overlord. The reason why he was able to destroy Prison 13 was that he must have used some kind of magic item. Charles himself had admitted this. However, that item can still be used once. This open space was not Prison 13. If the power from before had really exploded, everyone in the area would probably have been annihilated. Now Sir General believes that I have this ability. I don't want to say anything unpleasant. I only have one request, which is to meet Royal Highness Obsidian immediately. Chenrui deliberately used some kind of power to spread his words far away. Are you threatening me? Doran's greatsword was waved and pointed at Chenrui. An oppressive breath spread out with him as the center. Even Sartre behind him couldn't help but take a few steps back. I am threatening you! Chenrui sneered, and there was already something in his hand. As long as I crush it with force, the explosion just now will be launched several times again. It is estimated that half of the inner city and even the palace will be affected. You are the supreme commander of the Imperial Army, and you are responsible for the safety of the capital. Once such a serious consequence really happens, even if you die with me, you can't escape the blame. At that time, your family will at least be exiled. Doran was shocked. Charles is right. If that terrifying item is really launched and I die here, then the Russ family, which has lost its protection, may face a disaster. Just the hatred between my son, Sergei, and the Karen family will suffer terrible revenge. Now, please send someone to inform the palace immediately and state my request. Chenrui said coldly. This is the last time I use the word please. In fact, the power multiplied several times was just a bluff. Chenrui did not have Zeri in his hand, but he knew that Doran didn't dare to gamble, and he couldn't afford to gamble. Sure enough, the blue veins on Doran's forehead bulged for a while, but his power gradually converged. Seeing this scene, a faint smile appeared on Chenrui's face. Half an hour later, Chenrui's figure appeared in the side hall of the palace. There was only one person in front of him. It was the supreme ruler of the empire, Regent Obsidian. Obsidian, who had received a detailed report, frowned and looked at this human without saying a word. Chenrui calmly accepted Obsidian's scrutinizing gaze and said, I killed the heir of the Lincoln family, 2 important members of the elder families and a collateral royal family, and destroyed the 13th prison of the secret prison. Your Highness Regent, don't you want to say something? Obsidian frowned even tighter, and he replied after a while, It should be you who should say something, Charles. When Chenrui heard that he even omitted the honorific of Sir, he shook his head. What do I want to say? Say that I took the risk to travel through space to the demon realm and sent huge benefits to the fallen angel empire, but I was ambushed inexplicably and was forced to fight back. Or, when I came to the demon realm again to bring you more surprises, Your Highness, I was caught and sent to the darkest prison before I met you, and I was almost dismembered by Sartre who came to visit? Hearing this accusatory tone, Obsidian's eyes were a little colder. Your Highness, don't you want to explain why I was treated so unfairly? I'm not a person of the fallen angel empire under your rule, nor am I a person of this demon realm. If I want to leave, I can do so before I am caught in the secret prison. As if to prove his words, a light gate had appeared in front of Chenrui. Stargate. Why am I willing to stay and suffer this kind of punishment? If I didn't prepare a life-saving item with me, I would have died in that damn prison. After Chenrui complained, he seemed to have calmed down again. Your Highness, before we decide whether to continue the cooperation, you should take a look at the gift I brought you. Gift? Obsidian's eyebrows relaxed a little, and he asked rhetorically. Chenrui observed Obsidian's expression, and judged that Obsidian did not receive the gift he gave to Isabella. It seemed that what Rommel said was true, but he did not expose this matter. Instead, he took out another box, opened it, and slowly floated toward Obsidian under the control of his power. Obsidian reached out and took the box. This action seemed casual, but it actually contained a powerful force. It was to guard against this human's means of destroying Prison 13. However, the expected thing did not happen. There was a delicate crystal bottle in the box. Obsidian was a person who knew the goods. At a glance, he could see that the craftsmanship of this crystal bottle was exquisite and valuable. There was some black liquid in the crystal bottle, and there was a delicate small sign on the side. When Obsidian's eyes glanced over the words on the sign, he was suddenly shocked, and his gaze suddenly froze. There were only 4 words on the sign: Resurrection Potion. This black potion. And it is one of the 2 black potions representing the highest Grand Master level. This is... Obsidian couldn't help but ask again. If this is really a resurrection potion, then I definitely have to reevaluate the value of Charles. I think with your Highness' eyesight, you should be able to see the 4 words on the sign clearly. Yes, this is the highest Grand Master Black Potion, Resurrection Potion. Seeing Obsidian's expression, Chinray showed a proud expression. As I said before, the most important part of the comeback plan has been successful. I have been recognized by the hidden Grand Master, and I have become his registered disciple. This is my teacher's work, and it is also my gift to your Highness this time. I forgot to introduce you. In the human world, everyone knows that there is only one pharmaceutics Grandmaster, and that is Archbishop Pavero of the Brilliant Shrine. However, Pavero can at most brew 2 eternal potions, Eternal Thought and Eternal Power. Meanwhile, although my teacher, Sun Simiao, is not well known, he is a true Grandmaster who has already reached the highest realm. Pavero can only be regarded as an apprentice in front of him. Although Chunrei said so, he was secretly praying to the Tang Dynasty Medicine King from another world. Old immortal son, I have now spread your prestige to the other world. Please bless me. In the plan that Chunrei told Obsidian at the beginning, one of the most important was to get the full support of a hidden potion Grandmaster. If it succeeded, coupled with the financial resources of the Tribute family, it was not an extravagant hope to get the approval of his father, Rex the Great, and even further covet the throne. For this reason, Obsidian deliberately asked Nero, who was also a human, about the black potion. What Chunrei said just now was indeed correct. In the human world, only Archbishop Pavero of the Light Divinity Temple could configure 2 eternal potions. The so-called hidden Grand Master had never heard of it, so Obsidian had always been skeptical of Charles' plan. Even when Chunrei brought back 1 billion black crystal coins, it was still the same. However, if Master Sun Simio can make the resurrection potion, he is definitely a Grand Master who is far better than Archbishop Pavero. As for the rest of the eternal and true black potions, it is naturally not a problem. The key is the potion in this bottle the Real Resurrection Potion? Obsidian calmed down and said, Since this is a gift for me, does it mean that I can do whatever I want with it? Of course. Chunrei understood Obsidian's thoughts and nodded. Obsidian immediately ordered someone to send a hellhound. With a move of his mind, the hellhound had already bled to death. Then, under the effect of the potion, the hellhound miraculously came back to life. Although it seemed weak, the effect of this potion was absolutely unquestionable. The real resurrection potion. Obsidian's hand holding the crystal bottle couldn't help but tremble. This should be the first time in the demon realm for tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands of years. Even the potion Grand Master Rosenbach 9,000 years ago could only configure the eternal potion. After verifying that this was the real resurrection potion, Obsidian couldn't help but feel heartache. Such a precious potion was actually wasted on a hellhound. However, as long as this human is here, I don't have to worry about the source of the black potion in the future. There is no real potion Grand Master in the demon realm at present, let alone this highest level Grand Master. Once the black potion comes out, it will definitely cause a monstrous shock. As long as he could monopolize this unique and precious resource, not only would it bring huge wealth, but his political influence would also be unparalleled. The elder families of the empire, and some armies or estates that disobeyed him would truly bow down to him. He, the regent, could become a real emperor. Moreover, as long as the means were appropriate, even the other 2 empires would look at the fallen angel empire differently. There was no need to look at the bloody empire, and the Shadow Empire's face with their tails between their legs like before. Well, your Highness has finished dealing with your gift. I should leave too, Chunrei said calmly. Charles! He also didn't use the honorific, sir, but Obsidian's tone was completely different from before. The way he looked at Chenrei was also completely different. There is more than one empire in the demon realm. Once Charles leaves angrily and cooperates with other empires, then Obsidian believes that he will hate today's mistake for the rest of his life. Even Raisin the Great and Catherine the Great can't not be tempted when they encounter this situation. I once said that nothing can affect the cooperation between us. It's the same in the past, the same now, and the same in the future. I can give you everything you want. What I need is just trust and sincerity. Chenrei smiled. The fish finally bit the bait. Whether it is the black crystal coins, the black potion, or the personal risk, these prices are finally not in vain. Chapter 360. A short and turbulent night passed. Early the next morning, Regent Obsidian officially convened the ministers and representatives of the major families to discuss matters in the hall. Except for the monthly meeting, this scale of council meetings was rarely seen. At the meeting, many family representatives discovered a new face, the palace senior advisor, Charles, who had caused a stir recently. This Charles was incredible. He killed 3 important members of the elder families and a collateral royal family, including the heir of the Lincoln family, Lorden. It was said that the shock in the capital last night was caused by Charles breaking out of the legendary Prison 13 of the secret prison. Now, this person was standing intact in front of everyone. He was standing right below the regent and above the Minister of Military Affairs. That position was definitely not for a person waiting to be sentenced. What was even more unexpected was that the first thing the regent did was to announce the crimes of the Lincoln family. The heir of the Lincoln family, Lorden, instigated Pierce of the DeAndre family, Leston of the Ryan family, and Mia of the collateral royal family to ambush the palace senior advisor, Charles. As a result, he failed and died. He deserved it. The patriarch of the Lincoln family, Sartre, was eager for revenge. He misheard people's words, framed Charles, and falsely passed the regent's order. He asked General Doran to arrest Charles and bring him into the secret prison. He even broke into the secret prison without permission and attempted to kill Charles, causing chaos in the secret prison, causing many important criminals to escape. The palace senior advisor was a distinguished guest of the royal family, representing the dignity of the royal family. The crimes committed by the Lincoln family were very bad and almost unforgivable. Considering that they had made great contributions to the empire in the past, the punishment was as follows: half of the Lincoln family's property shall be confiscated, and the title of the elder family shall be revoked. Several elders who instigated Patriarch Sartre to make mistakes shall be executed. Sartre was ordered to stay at home and ponder for a year. As accomplices, the Ryan family and the DeAndre family were also given a warning and a high fine. Although the ministers of the elder family's faction expressed opposition to this, and several representatives of the elder families also made strong protests, and even left the meeting angrily, Obsidian did not appease or compromise. Instead, he firmly maintained the original sentence. He even vaguely said that if the 3 families refused to implement this punishment, then he would enforce it by force. Many ministers and family representatives set their eyes on the quiet Charles below Obsidian. They didn't know what method he used to actually make the Regent Royal Highness act so decisively against the elder families. In any case, Charles must be an extremely favored person at the moment. Many people had begun to think about how to get closer to this senior consultant. Isabella stood silently beside Legaquarin, the Minister of Finance. She didn't look at Chenrei and just quietly stared at the ground. Seeing that he could not stop Obsidian's decision, Rommel rolled his eyes and seconded. The Lincoln family has indeed made a big mistake this time. I believe that after this incident, Patriarch Sartre will learn a lesson. If he makes meritorious deeds in the future, he should be able to get permission to return to the ranks of the elder families. Rommel was the military minister supported by several elder families. In a sense, he could represent most of the elder families. This statement was undoubtedly tantamount to abandoning the Lincoln family. Sartre's body shook, and he suddenly became dispirited, as if he had aged 100 years. Obsidian nodded with satisfaction. At present, he didn't want to be too stiff with the elder families. It would not be too late to suppress them step by step after he really mastered the black potions. However, there is one thing I want to mention. Rommel glanced at Isabella. According to my intel, before Sir Charles was taken away by General Doran, he gave a gift to Mrs. Isabella and asked her to pass it to the Regent Royal Highness as the basis for an explanation. However, Mrs. Isabella hid it secretly and did not hand it over to Royal Highness. She did not even meet Royal Highness to plead for Sir Charles. I am personally shocked by this incident, and I feel even more sorry for Sir Charles. Obsidian had been distressed by the waste of the bottle of resurrection potion. Now when he heard the word gift, his heart moved. There was a hint of coldness in his eyes. Rommel, are you sure there is such a thing? I can guarantee this with my life. I also have a witness, which is a maid who was present when Sir Charles handed the gift. Rommel looked at Chinray and said confidently, in fact, Sir Charles himself is the best proof of this matter. Not only that, according to my latest intel, the reason why Lorden ambushed Sir Charles is that he was provoked by Mrs. Isabella. The young and vigorous Lorden was blinded by beauty for a while. Under jealousy, he made a big mistake recklessly. Speaking of it, the source of all this is this Lady Devil's snare. Since the Lincoln family's crime cannot be pardoned, then Isabella's crime is even more unforgivable. I ask your Highness to deal with it impartially and behead the real culprit, Isabella, in public to comfort the dead souls. When the ministers heard this, there was a whisper. If what Rommel said is true, then I'm afraid this capital flower will not be able to escape the fate of death today, since there is no way to turn the Lincoln family's matter around. Then Isabella cannot be forgiven either. The regent can't slap his own mouth in return. It would be a pity if such an enchanting flower of the imperial capital perished like this, but she had no choice but to die. Rommel's meaning was very simple. The elder families cut off the Lincoln family's arm, so they must also cut off one of Obsidian's arms. Moreover, this matter is a fact. Charles is the most powerful witness. This is also equivalent to expressing goodwill to Charles on behalf of the elder families. Analyzing the current situation, Charles can make Regent Obsidian openly attack the elder families. There must be huge benefits beyond the original expectation in it. It seems that I really underestimated the other party before. In any case, I must try to win this person even if I have to pay a huge price in patience. Looking at the smiling Rommel, Obsidian's face gradually sank. Regardless of whether the gift is true or false, Isabella is a very important figure under my command. Not only does she have considerable talent in politics and economics, but she also controls the most sophisticated intelligence agency. If she is damaged because of this matter, then it will definitely be an extremely heavy loss. The key is that I have said too much when dealing with the Lincoln family previously. It will definitely be difficult to convince the public to forgive Isabella now. At present, the influence of the elder families is quite large, and it involves Charles. With Black's contact with Charles, this human is very vengeful. The punishment of the Lincoln family is one of the conditions for his cooperation. Of course, if it is me, I can't be soft-hearted to the enemy. Obsidian took a deep breath and said, Isabella, don't you want to explain? With a faint silence in her eyes, Isabella shook her head blankly. There is nothing to explain. Obsidian raised his eyes and glanced at the gazes of the ministers. As he gritted his teeth and was about to announce the disposal decision, he heard Chinray said, Your Highness, it seems that I, the victim, should come out and say a few words about this matter. Obsidian nodded. Chinray stood up and shook his head. The first thing to explain is that the so-called gift, in fact, there is no such thing at all. Rommel's confident smile suddenly froze on his face. The one who was most surprised was Isabella. Although her expression still did not change, her blue eyes, which were as calm as an ancient well, finally rippled. Charles is the first person involved. If he says there is no such thing, then there must be no such thing. Even if Rommel finds 100 maids as witnesses, it will be useless. Obsidian was relieved, and he nodded slightly. There is one more thing that needs to be said. During the days when I was imprisoned in the secret prison, this Sir Minister of Military Affairs had visited me. The kind of coercion and temptation is still fresh in my memory. Looking at Rommel, whose expression suddenly changed, Chenray's tone became colder. At that time, I didn't agree to his conditions. Shortly after Sir Rommel left, Sir Sartre, who wanted to tear me into pieces, appeared in the secret prison. Sir Rommel, as far as I know, the real reason why Lorden assassinated me was instigated by you. It is because I am too close to Miss Isabella, which will become a political stumbling block for you, the military minister. Moreover, I also killed the spy you arranged around the lady, the coachman, Jardel. I need you to give me an explanation in front of the Regent Royal Highness and all the lords. Rommel was shocked. He didn't expect that. Charles not only ignored his goodwill on behalf of the elder families, but he also made a counterattack and completely poured this dirty water on him. These words were true with falsehoods, which were interlinked and reasonable. Although there were very few falsehoods, it was enough to make Rommel doomed eternally. The intimacy between Isabella and Chenray was well known. As a political enemy, Rommel had this motive. Coupled with the incident of Sartre and Jardel, Rommel couldn't find the words to refute for a while. Many ministers who knew a little bit believed it, and there was another whisper. I didn't expect the behind-the-scenes mastermind of all this is actually Rommel, who has always been a thief. Not only does he want to conspire to kill Charles, but he also wants to frame Isabella. Obsidian was determined. He snorted coldly and said in a stern tone, Rommel, how do you explain it? Rommel's face was pale. Your Highness, if this is the case, why would I take the initiative to mention Isabella just now? Obsidian interrupted his unconvincing explanation and asked sternly, Have you been to the secret prison? This matter could be easily found out, so Rommel could only grit his teeth and admit. Yes, but is Jardel your man? Yes, but I was wronged. Obsidian shook his head. This matter is already very clear. I'm quite disappointed in you, Rommel. I remember Sir Rommel said just now that you can use your life as a guarantee? Chenray added calmly, which was equivalent to putting a knife on Rommel's neck when he fell. The incident of the Lincoln family had successfully provoked the contradiction between the elder families and Obsidian, but it was not enough. Chenray needed to add more fuel to the fire. Moreover, Isabella was Lomont's aunt. More importantly, she knew the whereabouts of the Belphegor royal family's artifact, Bree's shadow boots, so she couldn't die yet. Since Isabella's sin just now was unforgivable, the same applied to Rommel, but Obsidian was still hesitant. However, Obsidian was still hesitating. No matter what the truth of the matter was, Rommel was always the spokesperson of the elder families, which was very different from Sartre. If Rommel was really punished or executed according to the current standards, then the contradiction with the elder families would be triggered in a chain reaction. Although this would definitely happen in the future, it was indeed a bit too hasty for now. However, Charles was the most important collaborator. This matter was really difficult to decide. I can return that sentence to you, Sir Rommel. Coming to the secret prison that day was the worst decision in your life. Chenray looked like he would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. He added another sentence to add fuel to the fire. Rommel found it difficult to argue at this time, and an unprecedented sense of frustration surged in his heart. For a while, all eyes were on Obsidian to see how he would deal with Rommel. The representative of the elder families simply did not say anything. It seemed that some invisible force was brewing in the strange atmosphere. If the earthquake last night was thunder, then today was a real storm. If this was not handled properly, it was likely to trigger a terrible flood. At the critical moment, Isabella, who had been silent, finally took the initiative to speak. This matter should be Sir Rommel's momentary confusion. Please punish him leniently, Your Highness Regent. Everyone was greatly surprised, including Chenray. He did not expect that the first person to speak up for Rommel was actually his mortal enemy, Isabella. Just now, Rommel still conspired to put her to death. This should be the best time to add insult to injury. When did the devil's snare flower become non-toxic? Obsidian secretly praised Isabella for taking the overall situation into consideration. This merit was one of the main reasons why he admired this subordinate the most. With this excuse, Obsidian took the opportunity to announce that Rommel's military minister and all duties would be relieved. The military minister would be temporarily replaced by the second general, Doran. Rommel would be severely punished and would never be employed again. As for the candidate for the new military minister, the elder families would re-elect the candidate at the next regular meeting. The dismissal and severe punishment could give an explanation to Charles, Isabella, and the ministers. Doran would temporarily replace him as a buffer period. As for the new position of the military minister, it would still be handed over to the elder families. It was also an explanation. As long as he successfully cooperated with Charles and obtained the only endorsement of the black potion, then it would not be too late to gradually take back his power and replace him with his own people. Sure enough, this ending was within the acceptable range of the elder families, and no one raised any objections. The storm finally subsided, and the waves finally settled. At this meeting, the name of Charles resounded throughout the capital's upper echelons. All forces were reconsidering and fussing over this upstart who could affect the capital's situation. Although Charles caused some trouble to Rommel, Obsidian was generally satisfied. Before the new military minister was selected, Doran would temporarily replace him. He could do a lot of articles that were beneficial to him. Moreover, when Charles announced the decision, he gave enough face and did not continue to be unforgiving. In fact, Chenray's plan to provoke the conflict between Obsidian and the elder families had basically succeeded. The reason why he did not go too far was that he did not want to affect the most important cooperation plan. Next, the court meeting was dismissed. A few trusted aides such as Doran and Isabella were left behind to arrange some affairs during the handover period. When Isabella walked out of the palace, she saw a figure waiting for her. "It's him." Her beautiful blue eyes watched this man approaching from afar. An inexplicable feeling welled up in her heart, and the coldness in her eyes was even more intense. "Innie, you should call me Madame Isabella." With a cold and distant tone, he brushed past her like a passer-by. Looking up slightly, she saw the dim and sparse dark clouds in the sky which seemed to be ashes. Chapter 361. Watching Isabella leave, Chenray didn't think much and walked straight to the hall. Whether she was a woman with a story or not, it had nothing to do with him. From the beginning to the end, both of them were hypocritical, but Chenray behaved more sincere. However, acting was acting. No matter how invested he was, it was just acting. For him, the value of Isabella was to trigger further conflicts between Obsidian and the elder families as well as Lomont's shadow boots. The former goal had basically been achieved, so he would slowly think of the latter. As for the mysterious force behind him, Chenray's current strength was not enough, and the plan was at a critical moment, so he didn't want to complicate matters. "Your Highness Obsidian, please forgive me for the trouble I caused you at the court meeting today." In the hall, Chenray's first sentence when he saw Obsidian was an apology. "I am the one who should apologize." Obsidian shook his head. "But Sir Charles should have noticed that the elder family's power is deeply rooted. Even I can't jump out of the rules for many things. I've made Sir aggrieved. I believe that as long as our cooperation is successful, the rules will be set by your Highness." Chenray smiled slightly. Obsidian's eyes lit up. "So, Sir agrees to cooperate?" The human who showed the black potions took the initiative in the meeting last night. He deliberately showed a little resentment and refused to agree to cooperate directly. Therefore, Obsidian decided to publicly suppress the elder families. Now that he heard the human taking the initiative to mention cooperation, he felt that his efforts were not in vain. "I have seen your Highness' sincerity." Chenray was actually eager to cooperate immediately, but he showed a thoughtful look. "I once said that the fallen angel empire and Royal Highness Obsidian are my only partners. To quote your Highness' words, this is the past, the present, and the future. The title of your Highness. I believe it won't be long before it will be changed to your Majesty." The last sentence touched Obsidian's heart, and a smile appeared on his face. "The production of black potions is quite complicated. Furthermore, my teacher is a top-notch guru. The potions he produces are all super black potions that are close to or even reach 100% purity. The cost is quite high, so your highness must be mentally prepared. Chenrui pondered for a moment, and took out a bottle of red healing potion. Your highness, you can find someone to try this bottle of 100% purity super healing potion. Its effect is far superior to ordinary potions. 100% purity? It could indeed be called super. Obsidian was taken aback. He took the red potion and pondered for a while. He called a guard to do a small experiment on the wound. The recovery effect and speed were really much higher than the master-level advanced red potion. He was even more convinced in his heart. The higher the quality of the potion, the higher its value. Originally, this kind of thing was targeted at high-end customers, and there was absolutely no shortage of customers. Compared to the huge economic and political value of this precious resource, any amount of money was worth it. Then, how much investment is needed? Our cooperation is long-term, so the initial investment will definitely be quite huge. Chenrui said an approximate number, which made Obsidian's face change. Although he was mentally prepared, this number was still too huge. I also know that this amount is too large, but this is already the most concise budget. Chenrui saw Obsidian's expression and smiled bitterly. For me, it is currently the stage of brewing strength. Before the time is ripe, I can't expose the most important secret weapon in my hand. Moreover, the funds of the Cribbit family cannot be mobilized on a large scale, otherwise it will arouse the suspicion of the second prince. Therefore, the main source of funds in the early stage can only be from your highness. We must raise enough startup funds. As long as a sufficient amount of black potions is produced, the subsequent monetary income alone is enough to multiply the capital several times, not to mention our other convenient harvests. Obsidian nodded, but then he shook his head. Charles, I have absolute trust in you, but to tell you the truth, according to the Three-Empire Peace Agreement 400 years ago, the Fallen Angel Empire must provide a considerable amount of funding to the Shadow Empire and the Bloody Empire every year. The treasury is actually not abundant. In addition to the potioneer contest that will be held soon, I'm afraid the funds I can mobilize can't meet this requirement. This kind of funding was actually tribute, but it was already the best result for the Fallen Angel Empire, which had the weakest combat power, to be able to exchange for peace in this way. Chenrui pondered for a while and said, I have an idea, but I don't know if it will work. Tell me about it. Our Cribbit family has a fundraising business method. When doing a large business, we will use the name of the family to gather the funds of the large and small alliance families in the Chamber of Commerce. This is called equity participation. Then, the profits will be distributed to the participating families. Generally speaking, it is profitable. This kind of fundraising can retain a considerable amount of the family's liquidity and reduce its own investment risk. It is actually equivalent to a kind of welfare because the amount of return is much higher than the amount of investment. Fundraising? Obsidian pondered. This business is definitely profitable. At that time, those who want to buy black potions will definitely flock to it. I can also learn from the Dark Moon's auction house to inflate the potions to an astonishing sky-high price. So, I will collect funds from the capital's major families now, and I will just return the profits at that time? Chenrui smiled knowingly and shook his head gently. No, Cribbit is just a family. In the hands of Royal Highness, it is an empire. Why don't you expand this scope a little further? Obsidian immediately reacted. Territory? Chenrui nodded. Up to now, I have a certain understanding of the situation of the Fallen Angel Empire. This time, for Royal Highness, it may be a good opportunity to strengthen control from another aspect. Control with interests is sometimes much more effective than pure force or system. You mean? Obsidian's eyes shone brightly, and he slowly stood up. Chenrui said confidently, Royal Highness is an extremely smart monarch. I don't need to explain the stakes too much. But I'm just an outsider. Only Royal Highness knows the specific situation of the Empire's various territories. At that time, Royal Highness can adjust according to the actual needs, such as the amount of equity participation, the actual proportion of rebates, etc. It is all under control. I believe some of the problems that have been troubling Royal Highness will also become easier because of this. This hint made Obsidian's thinking more open. Charles is right. Control with interests is sometimes more effective than force. Perhaps this time I can really change the pattern of the entire empire. At that time, even if I don't get the recognition of the Sword of Fallen Angel, I will also become a veritable emperor. But there is one thing that Royal Highness must pay attention to. Our purpose is not just pure wealth, so we can't disclose the true purpose of this fundraising to anyone for the time being. The secret weapon of black potions can only appear at the most appropriate time to exert the greatest lethality. In order to avoid alerting the enemy, it's not suitable for me to appear. If you need some kind of guarantee, Royal Highness can only come forward yourself. Shenrui looked at Obsidian, who was still thinking, and a strange light appeared in his hand. If Royal Highness has this courage, then I can rest assured to sign an equality contract with Royal Highness. His tone was as if he had just taken a big risk and was worried about Obsidian. Of course, if there was a story about Charles, then this was indeed a desperate gamble. Obsidian looked carefully at the content of the equality contract, and put aside the last scruple in his heart. Unless he reached the god level, the contract was irreversible. According to his intel, Charles signed an equality contract with the Red Spirit Lord Josh when they first cooperated. Later, he returned several times the profit as agreed, making the contract come to a successful end. Now that the two had signed this contract, it was equivalent to the formal establishment of a cooperative relationship. At this time, there was still nearly 100 years before the battle between the demon realm and humans, so there was no need to worry about some unnecessary doubts. After all, there were at least two others who had the strength to cooperate with Charles. Charles did not necessarily choose him, but for him, it was the best opportunity to completely control the empire, and even make a name for himself in the demon realm. He must not miss it. The following things went smoothly. The two sides successfully signed the equality contract, and became true allies. Although Chenrui's power was far weaker than Charles, from the perspective of cooperation, he was the real leader. Coupled with the identity of the real prince, Obsidian did not have the arrogance of a demon overlord. His tone of speech seemed much more cordial. Without further ado, Royal Highness, please hold a Lord meeting and raise funds as soon as possible. I will return to the human world today to arrange related matters. Half a month. 1 month later at most, I will come to the capital and take away the funds. There is also good news. The most important result of my teacher's research in recent years is nearing the end. At that time, I will bring a new gift to your Royal Highness so that your Royal Highness can rejuvenate for the second time. Rejuvenate? Obsidian was shocked. Could it be a longevity potion? I didn't expect that. In addition to the resurrection potion, the Grand Master Sun Ximiao is about to develop a longevity potion. The last kind of supreme black potion. Although demons had a longer lifespan than humans, especially the powerhouses, they would eventually grow old and die. Those in power would always complain that their lives were not long, but since ancient times, apart from the legendary gods, no life form could truly live forever. Therefore, things that could increase one's lifespan became extremely precious, and the longevity potion was one of the best of such treasures. It did not increase the specific number of years, but the proportion of the entire lifespan. In other words, the longer the lifespan, the better the effect. Coupled with the extraordinary skills of the Grand Master, the potion must be far beyond imagination for Obsidian, who was a demon overlord. Obsidian was currently approaching the old age stage. If he could take the high-purity longevity potion prepared by the Grand Master, then, as Charles said, it was equivalent to rejuvenating for the second time. Life, my own, cannot be measured by any wealth. If this potion appears in the demon realm in the future, it will definitely be more shocking than all the other black potions combined. Not only that, Charles also said something that moved him even more. My teacher has a close friend who is a mechanic Grand Master. After I go back this time, I will ask my teacher for advice. By then, I may be able to help Your Highness solve the problems of some artifacts. Artifact. Sword of Fallen Angel. The corner of Obsidian's eyes trembled. The excitement that had just subsided due to the resurrection potion began to surge in his heart again. This highest artifact of the royal family had always been his sore point. It was also the biggest obstacle that prevented him from becoming the legitimate fallen angel emperor. Logically, as long as one had the royal bloodline, one was qualified to be recognized by the artifact. He didn't know whether the Lord of Midnight Sun left some kind of seal at the end or Obsidian was really despised by the artifact. He had tried all means over the years, but he had never been recognized by the artifact. Therefore, the more this was the case, the more he dared not let the Sword of Fallen Angel come into contact with the Midnight Sun family, including the former Crown Prince, Grimm's younger brother, who was also one of his nephews. Ivanson was secretly imprisoned by him. There was no Grand Master level mechanic in the demon realm. Even the top mechanic, Nate, and the trio specialized genius, Arthur, who had disappeared, were still quite a distance away from the real Grand Master. Charles, as teacher, could make a full set of super black potions, so he deserved the title of the top Grand Master. Then, to be able to become his close friend, the mechanic Grand Master's attainments must also be extraordinary. Maybe he can really solve this problem that has troubled me for many years. Chinrei actually wanted to steal the Sword of Fallen Angel this time, but haste makes waste. The Sword of Fallen Angel could be the last straw that broke the camel's back, but it would not be the most crucial thing to reverse the situation. Even if Jia really had the Sword of Fallen Angel, Obsidian would not bow down to her. Compared with the more symbolic artifact, the plan to fundamentally destroy the enemy's strength was more important. After personally sending Charles away, Obsidian could no longer hold back the ecstasy in his heart. He laughed 3 times and felt complacent for a while. He had already begun to imagine how he would shock the demon realm in the future and amaze the world with a single brilliant feat. Chinrei also wanted to laugh because the most important part of the plan was finally completed. Next, it would depend on how Obsidian would do his best to help him take risks and raise funds. Anyway, it was a job that would benefit Obsidian more than himself. Obsidian could suppress Crown Prince Grimm's family and supporters and rule the Fallen Angel Empire for hundreds of years. He was by no means mediocre, but Chinrei caught his itch. Under these difficult conditions, he finally fell into the trap. Now he was sold, but he was still helping to find a buyer. As for Isabella, Chinrei initially gave her a bottle of eternal power instead of the highest level black potion. Later, in order to give a strong shot, he directly took out the resurrection potion in front of Obsidian. However, Isabella knew the existence of the black potion, and it was likely to involve the secret organization. Of course, the black potion was a bait. It should not be too difficult to trick a secret organization, but Chinrei's current goal was Obsidian, so he didn't want to attract more attention. After all, his ultimate goal was not to destroy the Fallen Angel Empire, but to let Jia take over and compete with the mysterious force. Just in case, he had to go to Isabella's place again to test her bottom line. It seems that some kind of emotional drama still has to continue. Chapter 362. Isabella's Mansion. Chinrei was blocked at the door. Isabella didn't want to see him. In fact, the female guard who stopped Chinrei was also a little puzzled. This sir has always been a frequent visitor of the mansion, and he often lives in the mansion. His close relationship with Madame is by no means comparable to ordinary people. She didn't know why he was listed as an unwelcome person now. However, in any case, the guards faithfully carried out the orders given by the master. Chinrei frowned. He told Obsidian that he would leave the capital and return to the human world today, and he also declined invitations to banquets and dances. Isabella definitely had to find out, but it was a headache for her to refuse to see him now. I am now playing the role of Charles, who is deeply in love with her. Do I really have to break in? Just as Chinrei was thinking hard about the plot, a familiar voice sounded from behind. Hey Charles, why are you at the door? Chinroy looked back, and it turned out to be Crobolus. It seemed that Miss Emerald Long just happened to come to find her best friend. Are you here to look for any? Why don't you go in? Crobolus was a little stunned. Unless it was a day like the distribution of welfare money, Ms. Emerald Dragon never participated in any boring meetings. She wandered around with the title of a senior consultant all day long, looking for suitable targets to rob. As for the recent political events, it could be said that she knew nothing about them, and she was too lazy to ask. Chinroy smiled bitterly and tilted his head at the female guard who stopped him. "Any refuses to see me, and I don't know what I did wrong." "Is that so?" Crobolus asked the guard curiously. The female guard nodded and said, "Miss Crobolus, Madam has instructed that she doesn't want to see Sir Charles at any time. It turns out to be like this." Miss Emerald Long naturally stood on the side of her good friend. She immediately glared at Chinroy with dissatisfaction. "You must have done something to make her hate you. Since she doesn't want to see you, then you should hurry up." He looked as if he was about to chase them away. At this moment, Crobolus's eyes suddenly flashed. She saw Charles's palm make a gesture to her, as if he was holding something in the air. Miss Long was born with a keen sense of smell. She immediately noticed that it was a big gemstone, bigger than the ones she had given her before. Her tone immediately changed. "Then, I'll take you in and have a good talk with her." Chinroy breathed a sigh of relief. Sure enough, in the face of wealth, the dragon's moral integrity was almost limitless. Seeing Crobolus leading Chinroy inside, several guards were anxious and quickly stopped them. "Ms. Crobolus! Please don't make things difficult for us. Madam has orders. Isabella said that I can come and go as I please. This time, I'm just bringing a follower with me." "So be it." Chinroy shook his head. He would just endure the humiliation for the greater good. "No way, miss!" Miss Long's eyes narrowed, and her oppressive aura made the guards unable to move. Then she swaggered into the mansion with her follower. Miss Long was still quite professional. More importantly, she was putting out a long line to catch a big fish. After accepting the gemstone, she led Chinroy all the way to Isabella's study. Isabella leaned sideways on the bench, wearing a very casual long dress. Her mature temperament was undoubtedly revealed. One could even faintly see the two seductive bulges on her chest that filled up her underwear. Seeing Crobolus rushing straight into the door with Chinroy, Isabella frowned. "Annie, I caught this annoying guy who offended you. You can deal with him however you want." Miss Long turned her image from negative to positive with a sentence. Needless to say, dragons were quite intelligent. A more accurate adjective should be cunning. "Miss Betty, let me talk to Annie alone to solve some small misunderstandings, okay?" Crobolus walked back and forth a few steps, looking thoughtful. Her hand behind her stretched out a V gesture toward Chinroy. Of course, this was not the meaning of victory, but 2 gemstones. Sure enough, she was taking advantage of the situation as expected. Seeing the human nodding without thinking, Miss Long was overjoyed. She found an excuse and went to the hall. Isabella turned sideways, gently held her palm on the other arm, and changed into an elegant posture. She covered the bulges on her chest calmly and smiled faintly. "Is there any urgent matter for Sir Charles to come today?" Although this smile was still beautiful, it was more of a formulaic expression. It was completely different from the previous one, but it was also acting previously. Now, the script should just be different. "Then, let's try this script." Chinroy smiled bitterly. "Must there be an urgent matter for me to come to you? I have no place to live in the capital. This is my only home." Isabella shook her head lightly. "As we all know, Sir Charles is now a hot figure in front of the regent. As long as you say it, more than one big family will immediately send you mansions and beauties." Chinroy sighed. "No matter how luxurious the house is, it can't compare to my own home. This is the only place in the demon realm that gives me this feeling. Although it is only a little, it is precious enough." "Home?" Isabella directly ignored the last sentence, and her smile was a little more cynical. A place with family is called home. Doesn't Sir Charles have his own home? I do have my own home. I am now just a kind of uncontrollable feeling from the heart, or I should call it stupidity. Chinray said sadly. You are right. A place with family is home. This is just your home. My home. Isabella was slightly absent-minded, then she returned to normal. I'm really a little tired talking to Sir. This was undoubtedly an invitation to leave. Chinray was silent for a while. Innie, I'm here to say goodbye to you. Don't you want to say something? It's Mrs. Isabella. Isabella corrected. What do you want to hear from me? Some boring words? Or some kind of insincere apology? Do I really make you so annoying? Isabella shook her head and said, Women are very fickle. Many things don't need a reason, and some feelings are sudden. Really? Chinray saw that no one was around, and he sighed softly. Then before I leave, this untactful and annoying guy, will tell you one last thing, or it should be called confession. My real name is Charles Roland, not Charles. Roland is the surname of the royal family of the Long Huang Empire. Originally, I just wanted to use the identity of the heir of the Roland family, but I didn't expect Nero to see through the royal family's body of light blessing. Chinray told the secret of the illegitimate son of Emperor Roland the Great, and he also added the foreign chapter of the Grand Master Teacher. This time, he came to the demon realm to seek help not only to resolve the crisis of the Roland family, but also to use the power of the fallen angel empire to use the resources of black potions to obtain the true recognition of Emperor Roland the Great and defeat the other princes. Chinray didn't know how much Isabella learned from Obsidian, so he told the whole story. The only real thing was naturally Arthur's body of light blessing. I also have the highest body of light blessing of the royal family, but I have been prohibited from learning light magic since I was a child. I am also the direct descendant of the royal family, but I can only be stepped on by those royal highness who are actually my brothers forever. I am not reconciled. When Chinray reenacted this drama, he was already quite skilled. His emotions and narration were in place. So, Isabella listened very seriously, but in the end, she shook her head. I should congratulate you. Your purpose has now been achieved. I have lost my value to you. Chinray sneered in his heart. It seems that Charles has been using her. Although it is true, her means are more vicious. If I didn't prepare a backup move in advance, even if I didn't die in the ambush, I would have died in the secret prison. The drama still had to continue. A self-deprecating smile appeared on his face. Originally, it should be like this. Moreover, in today's court meeting I should accept Rommel's goodwill on behalf of the elder families. But I don't know why, I finally chose a decision of shouldn't. Why? There are too many shoulds in this world, and there are too many shouldn'ts. I don't want to ask you why you did that. I only know that without Rommel now, you can do more things you want to do. It's just that you are the only person who knows about this matter besides the regent. Please keep it a secret for me. Only the dead are the most credible secret keepers. Besides, how do you know what I want to do? Isabella smiled charmingly, but her voice was cold. Maybe it is to make a nasty guy disappear forever? That is your freedom. Similarly, my choice is also my freedom. Chinray's resolute face showed a firm expression. As a man, I don't need to explain more, and I won't regret it. This man seems to be a bit stupid, but sometimes stupidity is wiser than cleverness. Isabella took a deep look at him. Your narration and expression are very convincing and infectious, but maybe because I am too sensitive, I always feel that there seems to be something that has been overlooked. Perhaps things are not so simple? Please forgive me, this is just a woman's intuition. Chinray was secretly vigilant. This woman is more difficult to deal with than Obsidian in a sense. I can't guess what she wants at all, and I can't grasp the gist of it. However, her wisdom is extraordinary. This kind of true or false words makes it difficult to rest assured. Therefore, he immediately changed the topic. Actually, I also have a hunch that even if Romel's plan succeeds in today's court meeting, Innie seems to have a way to get out. This may be a man's intuition. Madam Isabella. Isabella did not explain, but she deliberately emphasized the problem of his title. No matter what happened in the past, it is in the past. I hope we can have a new start, okay? Miss Isabella? If you really think that I don't have this qualification, then I won't bother you anymore, and I will disappear in front of you. This miss was exactly what Charles used when he first saw Isabella in the Red Spirit estate. Isabella's eyes moved slightly, and she asked noncommittally, "Even if there will be a lot of dangers and accidents?" "Even if yes, but I hope to fulfill a promise before these dangers and accidents." Chinroy looked into Isabella's eyes. "Snow Dowlet, in the near future, I will go to the Holy Mountain of Light, personally pick a holy flower, and send it to you." Isabella's pupils suddenly contracted, and her eyes were instantly filled with a complicated expression. This was a request she made to Charles. At the beginning. Unexpectedly, he had always remembered it. Just before he was taken away by General Doran, he even held her hand and said, "I haven't gone to the Holy Mountain of Light to pick that snow dowlet and give it to you. So, I will never leave just like this." Chunrei was originally just looking for an excuse, but he unexpectedly discovered her abnormal emotional fluctuations. He remembered that when he held Isabella's hand to confess before Doran arrived, it seemed to be a little strange. At that time, he thought that it was a sudden incident, so he ignored it. Now that I think about it, could it be that this snow dowlet really has a purpose? Or is it an entry point? Isabella had returned to normal in an instant. There was a strange brilliance in her smile. Then, "I am looking forward to this day, Sir Charles." The title of Sir was much better than the indifferent Sir, and it did not make him disappear. At least, it was a good beginning for the relationship between the two parties to break the ice. However, the promise was just to stabilize her. In this test, he took the initiative to tell Isabella his secret in the form of a confession. Perhaps it was also equivalent to telling the mysterious organization, especially the source, of the black potion. He believed that the Force would not deal with him again before trying to fight for this unique resource. This gave him valuable buffer time. As long as the fallen angel capital plan succeeded, the identity of Charles would completely evaporate, like Master Arthur. Even if the organization had various schemes, it was just a fleeting cloud. After Chinrei achieved his goal, he made a sensible gesture. He did not pester any more and left. Snow Dowlet. Isabella's palm holding her arm trembled a little. Her nails deeply pinched into her white jade-like skin, and she didn't even realize that blood was oozing out. There were a few rare traces of grief and pain in her trembling voice. She seemed to remember something unforgettable. It was not until Crobolus's voice came that she gradually returned to normal. Chinrei didn't know Isabella's true emotions. The capital's strategy had come to an end. He had to go to a place to see another beauty first. The beauty's beauty was even better than Isabella, but for him personally, the danger was 10 times more. Chapter 363. Rainbow Valley. Miss Long was still dressed in a pair of glasses and a long dress. When she saw Richard appear in front of her again, Rala showed a moving smile. This moving smile made Chinrei a little absent-minded for a moment. To be honest, in addition to her amazing beauty, Miss Long's quiet and elegant intellectual temperament was also full of charm. However, Chinrei immediately returned to normal. He was even vigilant because he knew how much danger was behind this charm. "You're back. You've worked hard." The tone of the intellectual beauty was like a wife waiting for her man to come home, but the next sentence exposed her true intentions. "Did you bring back the ancient rune slate?" "Sure enough, she's still so direct," Chinrei nodded and said. "I have used the requiem fruit to save the friend named Moore. As a thank you, he gave me the remaining slate." Before he finished speaking, the fairy dragon's eyes immediately lit up. She appeared in front of him and grabbed his shoulder. Really? That was great! Take it out and give it to me! The distance between the two sides was too close. He could already smell the faint fragrance from Rala's body. He could even see the two plump and well-proportioned ravines on her chest, but Rala didn't care. Similarly, Chenrui didn't dare to look too much. He just asked, "Then, about me learning ancient runes, no problem. Leave it to me. Since you're my good assistant." The most important thing is to be a good experiment subject, the two said in their hearts at the same time. Looking at Rala's posture, she would find the slate even if she had to strip him naked. Maybe she would even study to crack his space power. Chenrui immediately took out a slate from the storage space. Rala grabbed it and stroked the slate excitedly. Just like last time, a large number of symbols floating in the air began to appear on the slate. Chenrui immediately activated deep analysis and quickly recorded many symbols like a computer. Rala also seemed to be using this method to check the integrity of the slate. Seeing Chenrui staring at the ancient runes intently, Miss Long showed an appreciative look. This Richard is indeed a guy who is eager to learn and respects knowledge. If he has the talent for ancient runes, I might as well give him some pointers in this regard. The runes gradually disappeared. The fairy dragon put away the slate with satisfaction, and she suddenly showed a trace of doubt. "Where did your friend get these slates? Are there any more?" Chenrui had long known that she had this question, so he replied, "My friend is a demon overlord level powerhouse. He got this slate by chance hundreds of years ago. At that time, he and several partners faced a strong enemy, and they finally defeated this enemy. The slate was obtained from that enemy, but unfortunately, they only got a part of it. It is said that this enemy is a dragon with the strength of the peak stage of the demon overlord, but it is not in a good state. It is using the power of these slates to heal. Otherwise, even if they join forces, they are not its opponent." A glimmer of light flashed across the fairy dragon's glasses. A dragon of the peak stage of the demon overlord. Crystal Dragon Jacob? As for the injury, perhaps it is an old injury left from the battle with Paglio back then, or perhaps it is an injury from encountering a strong enemy later. Jacob is also considered to be barely proficient in the dragon inscription. He should be able to use some kind of strange power of these ancient rune slates to heal his special physique. This matter should not be a problem, but unfortunately, only 2 slates were obtained. The runes were still incomplete, and many problems still could not be answered. The crystal dragon Jacob was Rala's sworn enemy. Hearing that, Richard and his friend were also the crystal dragon's enemies, the fairy Miss Long regretted that she couldn't gather all the slates, and she had a more favorable impression of Chenrui. However, the biggest reason was naturally the precious ancient runes slate that he offered. "Miss Rala, the combination of these 2 symbols is 7, and that kind of law is very similar. Is there some connection, or do they belong to the same category?" Chenrui thought for a while and drew a dozen symbols on the ground. One was from the slate last time, and the other was what he saw just now. Although he couldn't get an accurate answer in deep analysis, he could already accurately judge the type and changes. Rala was slightly surprised, and there was a flash of appreciation in her eyes. With her attainments, she could naturally see the accuracy of these 14 runes. Those changes were accurate. She didn't expect that Richard was actually talented in this area. Coupled with magic circle, dragon inscription, and mechanics, he could be considered an all-rounder. "Miss? Oh, can you, Miss Long habitually showed a dazed expression, and she replied without answering the question. "I'm a little hungry." Sure enough, it starts again. Fake days, playing dumb, black-bellied, so, the life of a chef, handyman, and experiment subject also began. Perhaps it was because of the 2 ancient rune slates, or perhaps it was the strong learning talent that Chenrui showed. Rala's attitude toward him had a slight change. This change was mainly reflected in the experiment being more careful and persistent. She would not give up until she got a satisfactory conclusion. She believed that this studious assistant would definitely be moved by her spirit of research. In fact, the studious assistant almost burst into tears every time. Of course, she was not moved, but tortured by these experiments. Many of Miss Long's experiments looked gorgeous. They were 100 times more beautiful than the capital's secret prison, but when it came to the degree of danger, the secret prison was simply a leisure resort. Speaking of the secret prison, it was necessary to mention the fat warden, Kabang, who had embezzled Shinrui's space ring. After learning about what happened at the court meeting, the fat warden rushed to the palace and waited outside the palace until the senior palace consultant who had just left. He returned the space ring to him while trembling. In fact, this ring was just a cover-up. The number was not particularly large. For the fat warden, it was originally a good income, and he was complacent for a few days. However, after learning that this prisoner had brought down the Lincoln family and the Minister of Military Affairs, the fat warden shivered several times. The fear in his heart was simply unparalleled. He immediately returned the ring intact and added a lot of filial piety in it. "Isn't there still?" Shinrui took the ring and checked it. Suddenly he frowned, which made the fat warden's heart skip a beat. Then the consultant shook his head. "Forget it. That is your reward. Do well, I have high hopes for you." After saying this, the consultant drifted away. The fat warden was stunned on the spot, and he almost cried. Because when Shinrui said this, many people next to him heard it. Most of them were the important members of various families who were also waiting to invite Charles, and even the elder families. These people showed a sudden realization at the same time. No wonder Charles can break out of prison 13. It turns out that he bribed this fat warden. Regardless of whether it was a blessing or a curse, the fat warden was finally involved in this sentence. Even if he could climb ashore alive, he would lose dozens of kilograms of fat. In the following days, although his body and spirit were ravaged by a certain beauty, Shinrui finally had the opportunity to come into contact with ancient runes. Rala still had 12 of the same slate, plus the 2 from Shinrui. There were a total of 14. According to Rala, she got these slates from a ruin many years ago. There were a total of 18 slates, and 6 were later taken away by her enemies. Ancient runes were known as the language of the gods. It was extremely magical. It was said that one could peek into the mysteries of the gods. However, many years ago, it seemed that after a shocking battle, the gods suddenly disappeared. After that, there were almost no miracles. This battle could only be seen in many historical materials. Some people also called it the twilight of the gods. Of course, the gods had eternal life. Tens of thousands of years was just a nap for the gods, so the believers still remained pious. Even that guy, Lomont, also said the mantra of demon god above from time to time, but it was unknown whether his piety was positive or negative. Each slate was equivalent to a basic character, just like the basic gestures of Chinese characters in Shinrui's understanding. It could derive a large number of sides to form various words. Of course, the understanding of words was only the first step. There were still words, sentences, and specific applications which were complicated and esoteric. If one could really master the mystery within, it was possible to peek into the mysteries of the demigod realm. Rala was praised by Paglio as the first person of ancient runes in the demon realm. She had been studying this for thousands of years, but according to her words, she only mastered some of the most basic superficial knowledge. If she could gather all the slates, she might be able to improve her level. Shinrui didn't dare to take out all the slates at once. Firstly, he had already made up the story last time. If he changed it rashly, it would arouse suspicion. Secondly, he was afraid that Rala would burn the bridge after crossing it. Miss Long of the Ferry had a negative moral integrity. Moreover, she was also Paglio's enemy. If she became stronger and stronger, I'm afraid that Paglio will be in great danger in the future. At present, it was better to follow Rala to try to learn the knowledge of the other slates. After mastering to a certain extent, he would comprehend the last 4 slates by himself. Rala spent most of her time immersed in the study of the 2 slates that were lost and recovered, so she didn't have too much suspicion. Although it was only 2 slates, nearly 1,000 side radicals evolved from them, and they could intersect with the other 12 slates to form countless words. It could be described as extremely complicated. As an assistant, Chinrui learned a lot of knowledge of ancient runes. The effect of deep analysis was fully exerted. Many changes and combinations that were almost impossible to remember became an unforgettable imprint under the powerful function of deep analysis. It was engraved in Chinrui's mind. The more he came into contact with ancient runes, the more he could feel the vastness of the mystery, as if it could contain everything in the world. If the original understanding of dragon inscription and magic circle made him stand at the peak of a mountain, then he was now in deep space, seeing the entire planet. Of course, beyond the planet, there were galaxies, star territories, and even the boundless universe. The mystery was endless. Although Chinrui only occasionally showed a little bit of brilliance, it was enough to surprise Rala, especially the accurate calculation and analysis ability. More and more times, Fairy Miss Long needed to rely on the power of this assistant. At this time, Chinrui took the opportunity to take out something. It was a prop made according to the rune changes on Peglio. He said that it was something that he accidentally obtained at a trade fair many years ago. He couldn't understand it at first. Now that he learned ancient runes, he realized that it might be related to this. Rala suddenly became interested, and she quickly recognized that it was some kind of seal. There were many words and phrases in it that she couldn't understand at her current level. It was abnormally complicated. But she didn't give up. Instead, she began to experiment and research enthusiastically. As an assistant, Chinrui was sincerely willing to assist her in completing the research this time. As long as this seal could be cracked, Peglio would completely get rid of the shackles on his body and restore the strongest power of the peak stage of the demon overlord. This kind of power was at least at the level of the crystal dragon, Jacob. Even without considering the situation of the dark moon, it was a huge surprise for the poison dragon himself. What surprised Chinrui was that Rala's experimental subjects in ancient runes were mostly herself. For example, she was among the 7 stone pillars now. On each pillar, there were constantly changing rune texts. This experiment simulated an unknown sentence in Peglio's seal. The entire laboratory, including the stone pillars, magic circles and other settings, were special supplies made by Rala for studying ancient runes in her early years. It could simulate and detect the effects of these mysterious runes to the greatest extent. These 7 stone pillars emitted a gentle light. Rala was savoring the feeling while recording the changes with a pen. In all fairness, the fairy dragon was indeed an excellent researcher and scholar. She did not hesitate to take personal risks in many experiments, just like the great scientists that Chinrui knew in the other world. It's just that if that degree of fanaticism can be calmed down appropriately, it will be fine if the moral value is higher, and the attributes of the fake days will be weakened a little. However, is this still Rala? As he was imagining, the symbols on the stone pillars suddenly began to jump rapidly, flashing with some kind of restless light. The jumping became more and more intense, and the light instantly became extremely intense. Not good! Chinrui was shocked, and he was about to forcibly stop the experiment. Don't stop! The fairy dragon shouted, and a magic shield appeared around her instantly. The fairy dragon's magic shield should be regarded as the most powerful defensive magic in the demon realm, but the strong light seemed to have a strange law. The elemental power of the magic shield was quickly swallowed and disintegrated. Before the fairy dragon could cast the next magic, she had been completely swallowed. Just when Chinrui used forced emergency methods to stop the experiment, the fairy dragon in the center had disappeared. Chinrui was taken aback. Was it space magic just now? Rala was banished to a different space. Or did she transmigrate? This should have been a celebratory event, but the problem was that it was an important research period to remove Peglio's seal. If the fairy dragon was transferred by the space administration, wouldn't someone's previous hardships be in vain? Chinrui's heart moved, and he began to search in the Rainbow Valley. Sure enough, he found the unconscious Rala on a hillside. What was even worse was that her long dress was already in tatters. Not only her shoulders, even half of her chest was exposed. Even though she was lying down, one could clearly see the full and alluring curves of her snow-white breasts, and even a little pink flower bud. No way, this scene is too unscientific. Chapter 364. Rala's eyes slowly opened a little. She felt a little dizzy, and her body seemed to be undulating slightly. When she focused, it turned out that she was actually being held in the arms of Richard, and walking forward. Damn man, how dare you touch me? AI, my body is soft. I don't have any strength at all. Even the elements have become chaotic. I can't condense them in a short time. It seems that the annotation of the runes just now should be disintegrating elements and space transfer? It's also a little offensive. These sentences are inlaid. They have special power individually, but when combined as a whole, it has another kind of restrictive effect. AI, why am I thinking so much now? Hurry up and break the damn disintegrating power, condense elements, and electrocute this daring guy into a pool of coke. This guy is actually quite pleasing to the eye. He is usually diligent, and the food he cooks is particularly delicious. He is also a magic circle and mechanic master. He also has amazing talent in ancient runes, and he is also a hardworking experimental subject. Isn't it a pity if he turns into coke like this? Rice paste or jam should be better. The fairy Miss Long's thoughts kept changing on how to deal with this daring man. Since the elements disintegrated by the runes couldn't condense for a while, she could only pretend to be unconscious and let this guy carry her all the way to the room. At this time, the disintegrated elements finally began to condense a little. Considering this guy's strange anti-magic physique, she still needed to endure for a few minutes to defeat the enemy in one fell swoop. Chinray didn't know that the fairy Miss Long in his arms had woken up. He carefully placed her on the bed, touched her forehead, and frowned. Why is it a little hot? AI, what a stupid woman. It was so dangerous just now, yet she still refused to stop. After muttering a few words to himself, he covered her with a blanket to cover her disheveled body, then he turned around and walked out. Rala's long eyelashes opened a little. Damn it! How dare you say that I, the genius lady, am a stupid woman? You even touched this lady's forehead. The footsteps were approaching again. At this time, the fairy dragon had recovered most of her power. It was easy to deal with this fake pervert, but she still pretended to be unconscious quietly. She premeditated to kill him with a sudden attack when he had bad intentions. His hand gradually approached her, but it did not reach into her clothes. Instead, it touched her forehead. It was a wet towel, and then, there seemed to be no then. The powerful magic that Miss Rala had been accumulating for a long time had been in vain. It was as if she had punched cotton. She was so frustrated that she felt uncomfortable. Suddenly, she felt an inexplicable anger. This young lady is so beautiful and moving, yet this fellow didn't take the opportunity to take advantage of me? Could it be that this lady has no charm? What a blind fellow. Chinray was completely unaware of the lady's completely contradictory psychology. In fact, in terms of beauty and figure alone, only Catherine could be comparable to Rala. It was impossible to be completely indifferent while hugging this beautiful and moving lady. It was just that when he thought of the fairy dragon's usual power, especially the terrifying shadow caused by the experiment, some kind of restless thoughts were immediately driven away by fear. If it weren't for the ancient runes, Chinray wouldn't dare to touch this terrifying beauty that even Paglio was afraid of even if he was given more courage. Rala's experiment was directly related to Paglio's seal. At this time, Chinray absolutely didn't want anything to happen to her, so he naturally had to serve her carefully. As Chinray was about to change the towel, he suddenly saw Rala's purple eyes open. He was startled, and his hand froze in the air. He saw the fairy Miss Long with a vigilant expression. What do you want to do? Help you change the towel? You fainted during the experiment just now. Chinray explained quickly. The current situation was indeed easy to misunderstand. If Rala thought that he was some kind of wretched character, he couldn't clear his name even if he jumped into the sea of death. Really? Rala touched the wet towel on her head with a suspicious look. You didn't do anything just now, right? I just carried you here to rest. I also put your glasses on this side for you. Chunrui was afraid that she was overthinking, so he temporarily changed carry to carry. Little did he know that the fairy dragon had woken up long ago. Carry? The fairy dragon's tone seemed more suspicious. Yes. Now go to the lab and get my magic record book immediately. If I don't see the record book within a minute, I will believe that you just conspired against me. This is not scientific. Your basis for this determination is too outrageous. Chunrui strongly criticized in his heart, but he didn't dare to slow down. He had disappeared from the door of the room in an instant. Rala adjusted her clothes and found that she had become a revealing outfit. Damn, I must have been taken advantage of by this guy's eyes just now. She flipped the wet towel on her forehead to one side. It was cool and quite comfortable. This bastard is not bad. I will reluctantly forgive his rude behavior. At most, I will take good care of him in future experiments. But this is the last time. If he dares to touch me or see my body again, I must turn him into coke. Rice paste. Jam. By the way, it seems he accidentally saw my chest when I was taking a bath last time. Did he also make up his mind like this at that time? Forget it. Let's take this, last time, as the standard even for the sake of that comfortable wet towel. Yes, this is the last time. As she was thinking, Chunrui had already rushed in with the magic record book while sweating profusely. As soon as Rala saw the record book, her messy thoughts were immediately forgotten. She threw the towel on her forehead, sat up, put on her glasses habitually, grabbed the record book, and began to record. After 3 minutes, the fluctuations will change. The special effects are element disintegration, space transfer. Then this text should be a compound type. That's right. In this section I can... Rala carefully recorded and analyzed, completely forgetting the suspect who was plotting against her. Okay. It's finally done. Rala jumped up and waved the magic pen in her hand excitedly. Come and take a look. Chunrui hurriedly came over. Rala explained the detailed meaning and usage of this sentence to him. He suddenly understood and nodded repeatedly. Chunrui had to admit that Rala was indeed a genius among geniuses. Even if he had a bugged skill like deep analysis, in terms of inspiration and comprehension in this field, he could only look up to the fairy Miss Long Fairy Dragon. This section can be divided into 3 parts. Chunrui nodded yes. Fairy Dragon. Then this text should be described with potential. Chunrui continued to nod yes. Fairy Dragon. If the following fields are reversed, there will be different effects. This should be one of the main paragraphs in the seal. Chunrui nodded continuously yes. Fairy Dragon. Did you want to do something to me just now? Chunrui nodded habitually yes. Fairy Dragon sneered with a strong aura humph. Chunrui reacted ugh. I swear to God. It had always been Chunrui who used words to fool others. Today, he was finally trapped by someone. Sure enough, he would have to pay for what he did sooner or later. No. Before he finished a sentence, he saw the electric light lingering, and his whole body flew up. When he fell to the ground, he had changed into an explosive hairstyle. Black-bellied. Too black-bellied. Someone's heart was filled with grief and indignation. He secretly vowed to never ignore this terrifying attribute hidden under the fake days in the future. However, Miss Long controlled her power very well. Although someone's appearance was a bit similar to the performance art of smoky makeup, he did not actually suffer much damage. Forget about hugging me in the front, you actually dare to scold me as a stupid woman? And, are you indifferent to my beauty? Humph. I've decided. From now on, you have to go in with me every time there is an experiment of ancient runes. Fairy Miss Long's glasses flashed with a burning light, and her tone was extremely firm. Even the strength to protest was lost, perhaps there were gains and losses. When Chinrui risked his life in the Rainbow Valley for the study of ancient runes, his other plan was proceeding smoothly. On this day, the lords of the fallen angel empire gathered in the capital to attend the emergency lord meeting convened by Regent Obsidian. In the palace hall, Obsidian was wearing the crown of a prince and a lavender luxurious robe, showing an extraordinary prestige. He looked around at the big and small lords with the eyes of a ruler, and nodded with satisfaction. After a few customary opening remarks, Obsidian began to get straight to the point. There is a very important matter that I summoned all the lords this time. It can be said that it is related to the Demon Realm Potioneer competition that will be held in the capital soon. Obsidian paused. For some special reasons, I need all the lords to come up with enough funds to sponsor this competition until it is successfully completed. As soon as they heard that the purpose of this meeting was to ask for money, many lords immediately lowered their eyes. The taxes paid by each estate to the capital every year were already very high, especially the lords of small estates. Generally, they were not well off, so they were silent at the moment. No one was willing to take the lead in responding. The reaction of the lords was within Obsidian's expectation. These guys only saw their own interests in their eyes. They held a lot of black crystal coins in their hands so tightly that not even a single coin would leak out. You need to understand one thing first. This time, I'm not asking you for money, but I'm going to make your money more. I'm giving you money. It's equivalent to a huge reward. Obsidian's tone was full of strong arrogance and confidence. In fact, this was also the true portrayal of his heart. As long as the black potion came out, it would definitely be a huge benefit of several times. I know that many lords aren't very well off, and their money is slowly accumulated. Now, there's an excellent opportunity to multiply their wealth in a short period of time. If I'm not sure, I will never hold a formal lord meeting at this time. I can't disclose some things, so don't ask for the specific reason. Just trust me, Obsidian. Lucifer. Double the growth? For a while, the lords whispered. It sounds very attractive, but I can't even ask the reason. Will there be any problem? If it's just a potioneer competition, won't I have to pay for it? How can I make a lot of money? However, the tone of Royal Highness Regent just now is clearly a guarantee. The White Feather Estate will take out 2 million black crystal coins in response to the Edict of Royal Highness Regent. The White Feather Estate Lord Sikali considered for a while, and he took the lead to speak. On the surface, this lord who was deeply in love with Jiao was actually getting benefits from both sides. He was also quite appreciated by Obsidian in the capital. This time, he would definitely be commended by the regent if he took a good lead. 2 million was definitely an astronomical figure for civilians, but for an investment plan, this amount of money was not even enough to fill the gap between the teeth. Obsidian frowned. As he was about to speak, a powerful voice sounded at this time. It's just 2 million, and you have the nerve to ask? For the call of Royal Highness Regent, the Red Spirit Estate has always spared no effort to respond. I, Josh. Alvin will invest 1 billion black crystal coins. As soon as this sentence came out, the audience suddenly quieted down. Are you sure it's 1 billion? Not 100,000? Many lords thought they had heard it wrong. The Red Spirit Lord Josh glanced at the shocked Sikali with a hint of pride, and he calmly accepted the astonished gazes of the lords. With Josh's keen senses, he had already smelled that this matter must be related to Charles. Josh knew what had happened in the capital recently. In fact, after the Charles case, the younger brother, Samuel, was hidden by him instead of escaping. Josh's original intention was to observe for a while first. If Charles really couldn't make a comeback, then it would not be too late to offer Samuel to the capital to show his merits. Anyway, the person was in his hands. As a result, when Charles appeared in the capital again, he unbelievably overthrew the elder families and the Minister of Military Affairs, and he became a popular figure in one fell swoop. Josh couldn't help but rejoice that he had finally made the right move. During this period, under his wholehearted guidance and even the help of secret techniques, Samuel finally succeeded in breaking through to the Demon Emperor realm. He used the strange space power to return to the human world. Samuel would definitely tell his brother about the series of great help that the Red Spirit had given him. From the previous contact and the capital incident, it could be seen that Charles was a person who repaid kindness and hatred. Now that he was also considered to be a benefactor to the Cribbett family, he would definitely get a generous return. The reason why Charles could get the full support of Regent Obsidian must be related to this huge investment plan now, so Josh did not hesitate to step forward and make a heavy bet. Obsidian knew that Charles' earliest partner was Josh, and he also guessed some of his plans. In any case, it was indeed praiseworthy to take the lead in firing the most powerful first shot, now. Good! Lord Josh is indeed my most powerful right-hand man. Soon you will be glad for this decision. I can guarantee that within half a year, this 1 billion black crystal coins will become at least 1.5 billion or even 2 billion. After counting all the funds invested this time, I will order a special person to calculate it, and I will announce the specific installment return plan by tomorrow at the latest. Everyone was shocked. He can earn so much in half a year? Is it true or not? As soon as he heard the familiar term, installment return, Josh was more sure in his heart. He bowed. Although this has exhausted the estate's accumulation for hundreds of years, the guarantee and trust of your highness cannot be measured by money. Within 10 days, this money will appear in front of your highness. Very good. Obsidian did not hide his admiration. Lord Josh's merit should be close to reaching the Duke. I hope you can continue to work hard. Perhaps in the near future, the Red Spirit will give birth to the first Lord Duke. I look forward to the day when I personally award you the medal and scepter representing the Duke. The titles of the Demon Realm Empire were divided into Prince, limited to the royal family, Duke, Marquis, Earl, Viscount, and Baron from high to low. Among the 4 lords, Jia was the lineal descendant of the Lord of Midnight Sun and had the title of Princess. The other 3 lords were all Marquis. Only a few elder families and the Empire's first general, George, had the title of Duke. Hearing this hint, Josh was overjoyed. He bowed and sat down again. The White Feather Estate Lord Sikali, who responded first, was bored instead. 2 million and 1 billion were completely incomparable. After Josh unexpectedly started this, many people's minds immediately began to move. 1 billion black crystal coins, even for the old estate, Red Spirit Estate, it should be a huge amount. Josh was one of the 4 lords. He had always been astute. If there was no absolute certainty, he would definitely not spend all his wealth without hesitation. Besides, there was also the regent to guarantee it. At this moment, the guard captain, Lance, reported. Gauss, the representative of the Dark Moon Estate, is outside the hall asking to see you. Due to the well-known relationship, the Dark Moon Estate had only sent representatives to attend the Lord's meeting starting from Crown Prince Grimm. Old Gauss was also a frequent visitor to the Lord's meeting. In order to avoid some contradictions from intensifying openly, Obsidian also turned a blind eye to this. However, this time, Obsidian was uncharacteristically cold and said, He still has the face to come? Didn't I tell him that the Dark Moon is not qualified to participate in this meeting this time? Obsidian glanced at the White Feather Estate's Lord Sikali, and he explained more to the lords. The Dark Moon Estate is poorly managed, and there are many inappropriate behaviors. Alan Caron's death is directly responsible for the last time. How can an estate that has committed all kinds of mistakes participate in this important meeting related to huge benefits? Tell him to let my nephew's daughter, Jia, come in person next time and beg for forgiveness. Maybe I can consider weakening some sanctions on the Dark Moon. Now, immediately drive that Gauss out of the palace. No, drive him out of the capital. Yes. After the guard captain, Lance left, the lords whispered again. The regent's attitude was unusually tough. He was determined not to let the Dark Moon Estate get involved because he didn't want the Princess Royal's estate to get benefits. It seemed that this sponsorship did contain huge benefits. Thinking of this, the lords finally made up their minds. Blue Lava Estate invests 1 billion. White Feather Estate invests 800 million. Obsidian's cold face finally showed a confident smile, as if he had seen the road to victory in the future.